Hey, hello, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Ceremonial Witchcraft. Now, I've already made it an intro, so it's going to sound weird because you're going to hear another intro after this. Some of this was made right after the episode I made on Saturday that I put out, and some of this was made yesterday, and then now some of this was made today. So it's 3 different days of recordings, and truth be told, I don't think it's done. I don't think it's complete, but I keep falling asleep in and out, and now I'm about to go to work, so I figured if I keep thinking it's not done or whatever, I'm just gonna, and it's not very long. I think I've only got 40 to 50 minutes of me talking, which lately I only go about an hour, but it's the substance. But anyways, I'm gonna put it out there anyways for you. So hopefully you enjoy it and you like it. And it's mainly to see if Spreaker is still working right as well. So it's not having any issues. But you're going to hear something from Bruce Lipton on there, and you're going to hear something from Greg Braden at the end that I think are both very helpful and something everybody should hear. So yeah, without further ado, enjoy the show and have a great fucking day.
Pay taxes. Psychologists have told us that up to 70% or more of the beliefs that we acquired as children are negative, disempowering, limiting, and self-sabotaging. I say 70% of your program is from beliefs that undermine all your power. And then we walk around saying, I'm a victim, my genes are killing me, nature isn't supporting me. Well, it's time for that victim idea to end, because we now know that we are all very powerful people, that our beliefs and attitudes about life are shaping not just our internal biology, but are shaping the life that we experience in the world outside of us.
My wake-up came when I realized that I was struggling, I was homeless, I was poverty because of a belief system I had that I didn't know I had. Okay, let's stop there. Everybody that's struggling is going through a belief system. They are manifesting that struggle unconsciously. They're not doing it with intent. That's why I can't say that they're doing something that is shooting themselves in the foot, because they're not doing it with conscious intent. It's coming from their unconscious program.
Bruce Lipton, he says poverty is passed on. It's taught in your families. And middle class is taught in families. And so the people right now who are sitting at home, who are struggling financially or worried about money or unhappy, they may be making a lot of money, but unhappy with what they're doing, it was probably taught to you. You know, your super ego was taught, get a job, work hard, or you'll never be rich, or the rich are evil, or whatever.
And until you change your mindset,
Correct.
Money won't help you, right?
Correct.
And we see that with people that win the lottery, people that make more money, they still have the same problem.
Right.
Because they have that poor man's soul.
Correct. If you're poor, you'll always be poor.
That's really hard for people to understand.
Yeah, the money will disappear that fast. Just like most pro athletes, they make millions of dollars, and what 65% are bankrupt 5 years later, it's because they come from poor families.
What is the one psychological test that correlates with success in life? And I found out that it's the marshmallow test. It's the test that has survived every challenge. You track students for 30 years in different countries, and you find that they are more successful, they have a lower divorce rate, higher income, higher status in society. So what is this marshmallow test? You get kids and ask them, do you want a marshmallow now? Or 2 marshmallows a few hours from now. And the kids that want the marshmallow now tend to be those that want shortcuts, those that don't want to do the hard work. They want the quick kill. They grab that marshmallow. But the other ones say, no, wait a minute. If I wait 2 hours, I can get 2 marshmallows. I can hold out. There's a pot of gold waiting for me. They're not going to take the shortcut. Well, it turns out that if you do the same thing with poor children, and the same thing with middle-class children, it turns out that poor children will, in general, go for the quick kill, because they know that things disappear real fast. If there's money in the house, it's gone in the future. So they learn something. And so one of the reasons why poor kids will opt for the marshmallow now is because things disappear. People steal it. People grab it and run away with it, and there you are with nothing. Take it now. That's their attitude. And they learn that.
Just before birth and for the first 7 years, your brain is operating on record. It's recording behaviors. I go, recording whose behaviors? Your parents, your family, your community. I said, why can't I make up my own behaviors? I go, because the conscious mind, the creative mind, doesn't kick in until about age 7. Before age 7, the mind is working at a different vibrational frequency called theta. Theta is imagination. So a child is in theta for the first 7 years, but theta is also hypnosis. And I said, why would nature do that? Why should it make my first 7 years programmable? And the answer is simple. How many rules do you have to learn to become a functional member of a family and a community? An infant needs to learn 100,000 facts. I go, how can you teach an infant 100,000 facts? How do you teach a 1-year-old a fact? If the brain is operating in theta, it just records like a video camera. The behaviors that are fundamentally in your subconscious mind, think about it, they're not your creation. The fundamental behaviors in your subconscious mind, how to respond to life and how to behave, came from observing other people. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, then the programs in your subconscious mind do not necessarily match your wishes, your desires, what you want from life. They match the programs of other people. And therefore, when you're operating from the subconscious programs, you're not operating from what you want. You're operating from the behavior that you were downloaded with by observing other people. And that's why it's so difficult to get to your destination using the programs in your subconscious mind, because they weren't designed by you or for you.
You have to really face the ruthless reality, the ruthless truth, that what you're getting in your life is a direct result of your beliefs. Your beliefs are controlling your thoughts are controlling your actions are controlling what the experience you're...
Believing in the power of mind and heart, knowing how this universe works, I know we're supposed to live our best lives, life of our purpose, abundance, and happiness. You're not supposed to struggle, be overstressed, and miss out beautiful things in life because you're working too much. I followed my intuition and I found a beautiful group of spiritual and awakened online entrepreneurs.
Getting out in the real world. So back it all the way to the beliefs again. We got to find out what are the beliefs creating the reality you have. Change those beliefs. You're going to have different thoughts. You're going to have different actions. You're going to have different results. It's going to be this domino effect. It's got to start not with the actions out here. It is one way to begin it, but I find it easier and more efficient and effective to come all the way back. Start there. These people don't believe it'll work for them. These people that are struggling don't believe, first of all, they don't believe the information works at all. They just think it works for other people. I remember talking to a friend about affirmations, and she said, I tried affirmations. Affirmations don't work for me. And I looked at her and I said, do you realize affirmations don't work for me is an affirmation? She did not. And that is what's going on with people, is that they're telling themselves things that they don't realize is programming them for the very lack they're experiencing.
Psychologists will tell us 70% or more of the thoughts that we have are negative and disempowering and self-sabotaging because they come from the programs that we got from other people. So it basically says, the moment you are thinking, the behaviors that are running you are no longer yours. They're other people's behaviors, and they don't support who you are. Here's the simplest conclusion. I rewrite all the negative beliefs that have taken me away from my goal, my destination, my wishes. I rewrite all the negative ones, and I put in positive ones. Put yourself into a state of hypnosis, which is a low brain frequency, like a low alpha vibration or theta vibration. That operational state of the brain at that low vibration, theta, or low alpha, is the functional equivalent of hypnosis. This is where your brain was for the first 7 years. That's how you downloaded all the fundamental knowledge that you're living by. In the first 7 years, your brain was recording on, all of the time, recording everybody's behavior and putting those programs into your system. You say, well, how do I do that? So just to help you out, theta is a low vibrational state. It's lower than consciousness and brain function. So here's the interesting story. When you're alert and awake during the day and operating from consciousness, your brain is operating at a high vibration. When you go to bed at night, it drops to the lowest vibration called delta. That's called sleep. But guess what? As you pass from the high vibration of being awake during the day to go into the low vibration to fall asleep at night, by definition, you pass through theta. Theta is just the part where the conscious mind is slipping off into sleep. So I go, oh, so there's a period of time just as you're falling asleep where your brain is naturally in theta. I go, yeah, guess what? Put a pair of earphones on as you're going to bed. Play a recording that has the beliefs that you want. I say, why is this relevant? Because just as you're going to sleep and your mind is dropping out of the higher vibration of consciousness and going toward delta, you enter into theta. And if you have earphones on and you're playing a tape as you're going to sleep, your conscious mind doesn't hear the tape. It's your subconscious mind. It's hypnosis. So you can create self-hypnosis every night by putting on a tape with a new belief or program that you want and play it every night. And repeat that, and that will do it.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if I'll be adding this to the current show that I'm doing right now, because I've already closed out my show twice. I said I was done, and then I came back on, and I did another bit. So, and the reason I have songs on here, I haven't put songs on here for a while. I get a lot of copyright claims, and it's funny because I don't even get them for books or the content I put on there. I get only for the songs, which is fine. So I just kind of stopped putting songs on there for a few reasons. One, I only had a certain amount of songs that were able to put on there. I have an iTunes account, and I pay for my iTunes, and so I was able to use those, but they weren't in the supported format, so I had to get something to change them into MP3s, basically, and I didn't pay for the program. It was just a trial version, so you can only do 3 minutes of it, which is why I use a lot of punk songs. Well, I like punk. I try to use music that has something to do with a cult or truth or whatever as much as possible. Some songs I just put on just to put on. So I was doing that to fill up the gaps in the time without having to put on, a freighter or a brazen or a birch. Because, a lot of the videos, especially when they're visual videos, some of them are just audios on YouTube, but especially when they're a visual video, it's better for you guys to watch it and actually see it. But in the same sense, certain people, get judged just by the appearance of something going on. So I do believe it's better just to hear the information. You can just hear it and make up in your head what's going on, seeing, really this way your eyes don't get in the way, your ego doesn't get in the way, you don't start assuming or judging. But anyways, so that's why I put the music on there, but the reason was to fill up the time so they can keep playing, because Saturdays I have dance first thing in the morning. I gotta bring my daughter to dance, and then after that, my boy Owen has to go to cadets, and today's our Santa Claus parade, so both of them are in the Santa Claus parade, for one for dance, one for cadet, so they both had to go today. So, and now I'm picking up Owen at cadets, and I just left dance. But the reason I was making an episode is because I have my wife's car, because she has my Journey, because my Dodge Journey has the winter tires on it. It's a family vehicle, so we use only that one as much as possible in the winter, and then we use this car as much as possible in the summer. It's one of the sacrifices we have to do to own two vehicles. It's just better that way. So, because, we can drive them around. We're going to pay the insurance either way, but, we can save on the gas and just move them once in a while and start them once in a while just to make sure they don't see anything bad happens to them. So that's kind of what we do. All right. So that being said, that's what we do. That's our process from summer and winter. We use one car in the summer, we use one car in the winter, save on the gas. But on Saturdays and any other time we need double cars, like when I'm working, I use one car and I only put gas in it as I go or whatever the case is. But generally I use the car and I let her have the winter tires, the bigger vehicle, whatever. So she likes her car, but she likes my car, the pros and cons of having a small SUV versus, a car. So I use a vehicle with other snow tires because, well, I'm a guy. We would tend to like more dangerous things, do more dangerous things, and so cautious of the wind. I don't care. I can do it. I think we're good. Which, I've reduced my amount of that kind of ego, cockiness, and all that over the ages. And, even though I know the things you don't focus on, well, where your focus goes, energy flows, right? So it works kind of in both senses too. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't think they're going to get stuck, doesn't think they're going to get in an accident, thinks you're an excellent driver, but you think about how you're not going to get in an accident, and, you know, you use that terminology as in, you know, the negative language I talk about all the time, negative words and all that. If you use that terminology, then what do you think is going to happen? If you're a magical practitioner, if you're listening to me now, you should know what I'm about to say and what I'm getting at. The fact that you say, I'm not going to get in an accident, I'll never get into an accident, I'll never do this, I'll never do that. Well, the universe only understands that I will accident. I will never get in an accident. I will get in an accident. I will get stuck. I will this, I will that. So stop saying that shit, first of all. If you want to maintain that, if you want to be the good driver that you keep talking about, and you want to not get stuck and not get in an accident, so then don't think about that. And when the thought comes, because you can't just not think about something, right? That's the thing. That's one of those reasons why we can prove that, you know, are almost with certainty, I can say, that thoughts are more like spirits or energies, signals, like radio signals around you that are either in certain places or either, you know, follow you, sent to you within your energy. I don't know how to really put that into words right now, once again driving, but because you can just be watching TV and then all of a sudden you get a thought, and it could be, you know, the TV that provoked it, or it could be something completely different. You could be writing a test, you're listening to a song, reading a book, doing the dishes, and there's just random things come to your mind, you know, and then you either act on them or you don't. And you can either act on them physically in your world, or you can dwell on them in an anxiety and fear-based kind of way or whatever. So that kind of proves that, you know, we don't really think. Now, when you first get one of these ideas, then you can start expanding on, elaborating it. That would be more of the definition of thinking, because then now there's something that popped in your head, and you are on purpose trying to think of all these aspects of it. But your conscious mind can only go so far, because if the information you absorbed, you know, for a test as a kid in class is in your subconscious mind, well, it's going to be one of those things like maybe you're watching a movie, like, oh, I know that actress, she's from, and I can't just think of the fucking movie to the tip of your tongue, but because you know it, it's in your subconscious mind, but you don't have a good link to your subconscious mind, so it doesn't come out. And then when you finally stop trying to think about it, at some point later on that day, whenever you're back in that same frequency or vibrational field or same emotion feelings, then it's going to pop up in your head. Because your subconscious can only release it whenever you're on the same level, the same playing field, the same ground. But anyways, I don't know why I got into all that, but that's kind of what I do. And I get into some profound things sometimes because of my little off-topic rant, ADHD bullshit that I talk about. And, you know, I'm not going to stop it completely. I tried to tone it down, but not completely. But anyways, I got into that topic because of, I don't even know now. And this is what I was talking about earlier. But, what the fuck? Where the fuck was I going with that shit? Subconscious mind releasing shit to you, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I know, it's proving about thoughts and thinking and all that. Why was I trying to prove that your thoughts are like spirits and all that? But anyway, so. Oh, yeah, so the driving thing. So if you're going around saying, speaking into existence that you will never do something, well, you're basically speaking into existence, into manifestation. And the more, you know, it's not going to happen after you're saying it once or twice. But it depends. If you're putting a lot of emotion into it, you know, like really bragging or really trying to impress somebody or something like that. So let's say there's a hot girl around and you're trying to impress her and there's other guys around. So you got maybe a fear state going on. So out of fear, your ego comes out and you start bragging. So you get this fear emotion, you start saying, I never do this, I never do that. And, you know, well then the opposite of what you're saying is going to happen because your mind doesn't understand the negatives. It doesn't understand that shit, so then it's going to come into being. But, you know, if you're just saying it randomly, oh, don't worry, I never got in an accident or whatever, and you don't have any emotion, you're not really paying attention to it, then you don't have to worry. The only time I would say worry is if you're doing that day to day, over and over and over again. So, like, when winter in Canada happens, there's ice all over the place, we get storms, you might be more likely to say something like that. So just watch what you say, okay? And then and so this is where I was going. Whenever, if you, I said, try not to think that. And I said, well, you can't really control your thoughts. But you can control the switch, the yes and no to accepting these thoughts. Just because a thought comes in your head doesn't mean it's yours, doesn't mean you have to accept it, doesn't mean you have to roll with it and do exactly what that thought was, because it's just your subconscious mind bringing out some information. You know what I mean? Or, you could say some spirit around you that you need to banish. Both ways work. Both ways have legitimacy to it, and I think they're both right, because some people believe in spirits, people don't. Some people believe in subconscious minds, people don't. And if you're a Christian and believe everything bad you think of comes from the devil, which is horseshit, just a cop-out, but if that's what you believe, well then, yeah, you need to stay true to Jesus and banish away Lucifer. So it's all the same. But anyway, so that all being said, so I'm just pulling out money to get some gas. All that being said, I used to be like that, always bragging about my driving, and that's why I got into, I flipped my friend's fucking SUV once on the road. It was funny because, I only had one beer at that time, but this was after I got caught smuggling, and I had conditions because I was smuggling. One of the conditions was I wasn't allowed to drink and drive. I wasn't allowed to have any alcohol in my breath. That was one of the fucking conditions. So, sorry, I don't mean for all this dead air. But I didn't know that. I hadn't read the papers. Maybe they said it out loud and I just didn't hear it. I don't know. But we were driving to an Ottawa Senators game, and in my buddy's SUV, no winter tires on. It was a fucking snowstorm, but he had box seats at where the Ottawa Senators play. And I think they're playing Philadelphia, but I don't really remember, to be honest, because I ended up flipping his Chevrolet Tahoe, and it did 180 degrees, like I spun around, and it also flipped upside down. So 180 degrees left to right, and horizontal or vertically, up and down. So yeah, I hit as above, so below, and I hit the as within, and so was that. I hit male, female, and I hit the fucking good and bad. But anyways, and I've gotten cars stuck so many times, and so anyways, I managed to get my ego under wraps. But today, after I dropped off my daughter, I was gonna watch her until my son was done his cadets, like I said, because they're both in the thing. So I kind of wanted to see her little routine she's working on. But I had to leave because she forgot her lunch, and I had to go pull out money to pay them, $180, and that's just like an installment. I mean, it's expensive for her. She does ballet, jazz, tap dance, and something called acro. All four, and we pay a fucking pretty penny for that shit. But anyways, I got stuck right in the fucking parking lot with my wife's car with no winter tires. Bullshit. But, I mean, within minutes, somebody from inside the dance came out and started helping me push the car and telling me what maybe I should do with my tires and all that. So I said, well, thank you, I appreciate it. And then he almost got me out a few times, but it wasn't enough. And then another man just driving by, not even in the parking lot, stopped his car on the road, hopped out, and gave me a hand. And within seconds, I was out. And it was a beautiful event. These are the things that tell me that, as much as people say we're evil and everybody's out for themselves, and we're all slaves, and then if you have power, you can be a bad person, and this and that. I mean, those things are certainly true, especially with people that have been oppressed. But from what I see, and in my world, because in my world, those things, I don't focus on those things, so it's not part of my reality. As much as I know it's possible consciously, I do my best to not allow that in my subconscious, because you gotta kind of look at it that way. You gotta look at it in the way of, you can consciously know anything you want, okay? You can know it whatever you want. Don't put feeling into it if it's something you don't want it to happen, okay? So that's the first thing. But you can know that there's evil in the world, there's slavery, that there's kids, things happen to kids, like they disappear, from the parents, abuse, all this. You can know this stuff. But don't watch shows about it, because your subconscious mind will see that show will put you into like a trance-like state, right? Because you're not talking, not doing, all you're doing is breathing. Think about that. When you show you in a meditative state or a trance-like state or whatever the case is, what do? Well, you do your best. You stay quiet, calm, you focus on one fucking thing, and you breathe. What are you doing when you're watching TV? Well, you're focused, you're calm, you're breathing, you're focusing on one fucking thing, and you're in a relaxed state. You're trying to relax, right? That's the whole premise. So when you're watching something, whether it's YouTube or on TV, I mean, I stand up to watch most of my YouTube stuff just so I'm a little uncomfortable. So I'm not comfortable enough to go into a trance-like state, unless it's something I really want in my mind. In that case, I do dishes, I sweep, I do things at the same time as I'm watching this stuff, so it goes directly into my subconscious mind. But that's besides the point. Well, actually, that's exactly the point. But so if I don't allow any of this negative shit in the world to come in, and I watch stuff mostly of, a nice, beautiful frequency, a nice vibration, a nice something that promotes the beauty of this world, of people being peaceful, loving more than they're evil. There's the yin yang, right? We're a little bit good, bad, a little bit bad and good, and what stories and people and who produces what on YouTube. You know enough to not watch this stuff. So if you want circumstances where you get stuck, and because there's karma where if you help people, you get helped. And I go out of my way as much as possible when I see someone struggling like that to do the same thing that happened to me, right? So there's that part of it, but in the same sense, you can't get those circumstances, okay, as much as you promote good karma. Let's say you've been doing a lot of good things, you start your initiation, you're changing your life, whatever, and, you're giving. I had an episode about how someone said, they've been giving money and tipping big and all that, and they're not winning on tickets or anything like this yet. And I said, part of that's because of your karma, because you still might have old karma, people you fucked over that you still have to deal with. So it might not be that these things aren't happening yet. It's just that if they happened, then something bad might have to happen after because you still owe bad karma. So maybe the universe is throwing you a bone and waiting until your karma's all done. Or, it gets canceled out because, you're doing good things, but you also did bad things. So right now, which is still a good reason to do good things. If every good deed you do cancels your bad deeds, I'm telling you right now, everybody, probably even Jesus Christ himself, did more bad things than good things. Think about it. In the Bible, they've written his early years and 1 or 2 years before he died. You have from fucking age 0 to fucking 10, 12? I don't even know. I think it's 12. And then he starts back up whenever he's at 30 years old, maybe 3 years, and he dies at 33, right? That's not much fucking time. Think about that. If he's 33 years old, half of 33 is, it's 11.5. So there's a little bit more in the book than that. But you're not even conscious until you're about 4 years old. So if you minus those 4 years out of the fucking 12 plus 3 is 15 years, and it's 11. So technically, if you live till 33, there's 11 years of him doing good. If everything in the Bible is accurate, there's 11 years of him doing good, and then all that, and then 12 years of him doing bad. So more bad than good, like I said. But the Book of Thomas, Gospel of Thomas there from the Dead Sea Scrolls explains what he did during his time off. And once again, is that Jesus Christ? I couldn't tell you. I'm not going to begin to say if that's really Christ or not. If I was a Christian, though, I would look at that and assume that that is the real thing that what Christ did during those years and all that. But like I said before, there's a lot of people that they reached a certain enlightenment, and that certain enlightenment came along with the title Christ consciousness. Before we get that. But the point is, people do way more bad deeds than probably good deeds in their lifetime, or so I may think. Anyways, maybe not. That's kind of going against exactly what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to say that people are more good than bad, but the people that helped me out of that spot just now might go home and ignore their children and all this, and it all depends on what constitutes as a good deed or a bad deed. But whenever you start this part, you're going to try your best to do mostly good deeds, and you're not going to be without any bad ones. That's 100% sure certainty as well. But you're always striving to improve and improve and improve. But I guess what I was trying to say was, if you want a life where good things happen to you, whether it's an abundance of money or about people helping you when you're stuck, I'm going to be late to go somewhere, whatever the case is, or you want a life where you get the job, the girl, you're able to pay your bills, whatever the case is. Well, if you're going to watch TV, read books, you want to put the things in your subconscious mind, not just the spells and the sigils to make those things happen, but everything else, because, it all goes towards the action. If you get into a trance every time you watch something on your phone, laptop, TV, then you want those things to be in line with what you want to happen to you. Because if what they say is true. And, you can roll the dice and say, well, I don't believe that. All you want, and that's fine. But to me, if it's true, and these are the circumstances and what it equates to, like what happens, like if what I'm saying, is true, this is what happens. If you watch TV shows that are good for you, you're going to have good circumstances. If you watch TV shows that are bad for you, you're going to have bad circumstances. If this is true, well then you can control and change your life just by watching good programming, things that promote good things. But if it's not true, well then, it just is what it is. You're at the will of circumstance. But being that it's a 50-50 chance, wouldn't it be worth it just to see, just to try? Because this, if you're telling me, your life's perfect right now, and you watch whatever the fuck you want, well then fine, you don't need to do this. Don't worry about it. But if your life is crap and not what you want, and you can say, well, I don't really care about my life. Well, you don't have a job you have trouble paying your bills, and you don't have enough time for your kids, you never went on a vacation, and you don't do what you love, you don't have any hobbies, but you're happy just working your job and getting your check on every Friday and impulsively buying what you want, and that gets you by, and having your beer and watching your show and eating your steak and all that. If you like that, then that's fine. I'm not saying that. But if you were going to say, well, I'm wrong, but then complain about your life, well, what do you got to lose? Wouldn't it be worth a shot? I am absolutely grateful for those two men just stopping what they were doing and helping me out. We didn't exchange names or nothing. I told them, next time I see them anywhere, I'll pay for their I'll buy them a beer or whatever they want, whatever the case is. But what I'm really going to do is I'm going to put in my spells. I'm going to do something for them later. I might even light a whole fucking camp. Yeah, I'm absolutely fucking grateful for them coming and helping me, and I'm definitely going to return the fucking favor. I'll do the I'll give him a candle and whatever the case is, because, I talked about not too long ago in an episode that, people, I think maybe it would have been one with about Sam Hain or one after that, there with that woman blaming the devil and evil and straight up evil in the world and all that. By me insulting her, it's just perpetuating what she already thinks, so probably wasn't a good thing to do, and I tried my best to say, maybe not neutral, but depolarized, but, I wasn't, because I didn't like what she was saying, and I acted almost as if it was a personal attack on me when it wasn't. But one of the episodes I got into the fact that people think they blame Satan, Christians, for all the bad deeds. So, and I said they'd be better balanced if they could actually, instead of blaming Satan or thinking Satan causes all the evil in the world, just recognizing him. Because all the old religions, all the old spiritualities, Egypt and one with Baal, all this, even is it Hindu? Can't think of it, but the one with Shiva, and I forget the other one. There are dark goddesses, and but they were worshipped because Shiva was the god. It was among a couple other things, but one of her attributes was the goddess of destruction. But she would destroy so things can be rebuilt. You know what I mean? Like things have to be destroyed for new things to happen. If something isn't working anymore, you have to tear it down or you have to fix it or whatever the case is. So, and like even Set, eventually the Egyptians are, so as far as you can read in certain books, eventually the Egyptians changed and started thinking Set was the embodiment of evil and all that. But before that, they had temples for him, built for him, because as much as he could be, kind of like Mars, right? Mars could be angry and, rage and passion gone wrong. Passion's a good thing. So lust could be a good thing too, but they got darker counterparts. And so even though those things could be, like Mars Mars and Saturn could be the maleficents, someone can use their powers, their energies to do bad magic towards you, whatever the case is. I don't fear those energies. I know Saturn is Grim Reaper, that, he was the one that this realm, and when our time's up, and he's control our time. So you can get mad and blame Satan for people dying, but it's not his fault. This is the realm that we're in. This is the rules that we play under, and there's actually things out there you can do to reduce that. I talked about that in my last episode and another episode a few episodes ago. So there's a bunch of things out there, but the point is, It wasn't until like Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim religions that came out and totally talked about people like Satan and the devil and bad figures, the embodiment of evil, and blaming those evil powers. But I went and said that we are capable of both good and bad. We get thoughts and we don't have to act on them. So, I mean, part of it is we're not taught properly, but eventually you kind of know right from wrong within your belief systems and the way you were raised. So you have the choice and you can keep doing evil. And, another thing we're not taught is when you affect somebody with, dark or bad energy, being angry, being resentful, jealous, hurtful, whatever, fearful, projecting your shit onto somebody else or whatever, then you affect them. You leave a charge on them. See, we've got both positive and negative in us. One could be positive, something bad could happen, and it puts them into a negative state. And now I'm using positive and negative not in a gender way, but in an emotion way, right? So all of a sudden you lose a family member, and instead of celebrating their life and the fact that even though they're gone, they're not really ever gone, which is something maybe I'll talk about after. But you're in a bad state. You've been affected. How can you go from being happy to sad like that? Well, and it's the same thing when people do bad things or good things in the world. They affect you. I mean, when those guys came and helped me, I was initially like, fuck, I'm going to be late to pick up Owen, as if I got stuck here. If I can't get out, this is embarrassing. These are thoughts that are going through my head. So I was doing my best to not think about it. And if I thought I went not as soon as, but it wasn't very long after. I'm like, you know what? I'll go pay for it and relax and then potentially tell them that I'm kind of stuck there in the yard, that it might just take me some time, but I'll get out. So I have a couple machetes in my car, not that my spiritual ones, but so I was just going to maybe dig out the snow. And I know between my mind being right and whatever, I can get out of this, And then it wasn't long after that, the first guy came, and then the second guy came. So, it was pretty amazing, I gotta say. So, and they affected me because I went from a negative state, and then I got my mind right, and then boom, I had a reason to be positive. But before the positive actions happened, before the guys came and helped me, I put myself in a positive place and stopped worrying about what may or may not happen. Stop thinking and, creating what's going to happen in the future by dwelling on what could happen, right? Instead of doing that, I said, I switched it actually, because I said I was going to find a way to get out. It's not a big deal and all this shit. And just by acknowledging that, being, okay, taking myself out of that friggin' anxiety, fearful place, by just putting my mind in a better state, I was sent help. I didn't even have to get out of the fucking car. I ended up getting out before I went in to pay, because before I went to go pay, the guy came out and was walking towards me. So I guess the point is, if you can master this, and, I can tell you this, and you can just be starting out and think, okay, I got this. But it's not, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody, because like I said earlier in my last episode, time is a very, something you need in this, and this is why with this age of Aquarius and everything changing and these prophecies and this grand awakening, or if you want to think about it as in the rapture, well, that's what that is. What they're talking about, this big event that's going to happen. This is the event. The event is this knowledge. The event that isn't going to be a cataclysm, isn't going to be Jesus coming back, isn't this big awakening where we just wake up one morning and we're all on the same page. No, it's people finding and figuring out and using their minds, figuring out this secret, this occult thing that's been hidden for so many years for whatever reason. Now that the internet is where it is, it's coming out, and it can't be stopped now. And they could censor me, they can censor everybody else talking about this stuff, they can break down the internet, they can do whatever the fuck they want. But at this point, there's so much out there, and there's so many ways to communicate and all this. There's no way to stop this. And if they did do something obvious like that to try to stop it, you know what I mean? By making a scene out of it, by drawing attention to it. Where attention goes, energy flows. By putting attention to banning magic and all this shit, which they slowly do, especially like with me. I can't even make a fucking Facebook account. But by banning it, they would bring more attention to it, and people would be like, well, why are they so hell-bent on that? And, they'd send out their little informers and workers, to go around giving fake reasons why they do it, and tarnishing people's names and all this crap. Some people would eat it up, but others would know better. But the rapture, the event, this awakening, all this hype around this something that no one knows, and people keep trying to pass on whether it's doomsday predictions or awakening, people getting powers or aliens, whatever. This is what it is. I'm telling you right now. And this came to me. This is the thing at the beginning of my last episode. It was I taped it on Friday or Thursday, and then the rest of it I taped today, but it would have been on it was Saturday today. So I taped a bit on Friday, and then I taped yesterday. Most of yesterday's episode, today's Saturday. I put an episode on today. Most of today's episode was taped on today, but the first part was on Friday. But the part I was talking about, the Aquarius and the information that came to me and all that was pretty profound. Well, this is what it is. I was in my kitchen, and I forget what I was doing or talking about or listening to, but all of a sudden, this was on Mercury Day I got this, but all of a sudden, it clicked in my head. And this is what I'm talking about with the thought things. I wasn't even doing anything, and it came to me, so I had to write it down, so I maintain it, because if I don't write down the random stuff that comes in my head like that, I lose it. And that's another way, or another fact, or whatever you want to call it, that proves what I just said about thoughts not being our own, thoughts being something that are around us, that we pick up like radio signals, like I talked about before, and somebody commented on one of my videos there. Anyways, he was talking, because one of my episodes I said something about hair and how hair is like antennas, and my work, the copper wire, the smallest gauge. Copper 1 is anything bigger than pencil lead, basically, iron gauge. When it comes to millimeters, it's anything above 0.5 millimeters. Okay, copper 2 is anything below 5 millimeters, and copper 3 is stuff that's thin as paper. So I made a mistake there. Copper 2 is the one that it looks like hair sometimes. It's so thin, it looks like red hair, basically, or brown hair, depending on how dark it is. And, what does that do? Well, that carries electricity and all that. And our hair, I think is very similar. So, and I won't get into people maybe losing their hair and stuff like that. But there are some things, there is a little bit of study around that. But anyways, point is that there's another proven thing about how thoughts come to you and all that. Because I was just in my kitchen and I wasn't thinking about anything, and bam, it just popped up in my head. And this totally wasn't my idea. Like, I never even looked into this or thought about this. I heard about all these event things. I used to watch it, but I don't pay any attention to that, because I find they're circling the drain with governments going down, or the financial system going down, or elites being caught, or people see the events, different things, and then now there's always these new events whenever you go on New Age sites talking about how, the event was this new age coming in, age of Aquarius, which I think is part of it, because like I said a few times now, the age of Aquarius is, it's an air sign holding the water, pouring out the water. So whenever you pour water into your thought of your manifestation, well, you manifest what it is. So the fact that the age of Aquarius is that sign, the person holding the water barrier, someone who is both has water and air. We see this with Mercury. He's an air sign, but he has caduceus, which is representative of the water sign, the snake, and all that. So we see that there once again. And he's sex, death, transformation, caduceus, anyways. But anyways, so, and that's what came to me. So the first thing that came to me in my kitchen was the idea that this event that's happening, that people are trying to change it to all these different things, which could be part of the people trying to suppress this knowledge. Their infiltration attempt is to go in there and make it some Christian fucking alien fucking cataclysm thing. But really, and then at the same time as they do that, they're trying to suppress magic and people talking about this. But really, it's the idea that you can put whatever you want into your subconscious mind, that your subconscious mind is the gateway to your happiness. And by doing that, saying this, that's what came to my head. So right after that thought came to me, then the picture of Aquarius popped up into my head. And then the water bearer, and then I put the air and the water thing together, and now we entered the age of Aquarius. So the age of Aquarius is part of it, and magic is the other part of it. And then around the same time, I was making my daughter a bath. So I came downstairs to get the Himalayan sea salt and all this crap. And when I went upstairs, it was Greg Braden thing was playing on, and it was the one he's talking about, not the cancer one that goes away in 3 minutes, but a different. It was ovary cyst that went away in 7 minutes, and this is it was a non-medicine hospital, a no-medicine hospital in, I want to say he said Shanghai, but somewhere in China, and they have a lot of those in China now. Okay, and this tumor was gone in 7 minutes, and how they were able to affect the tumor. The lady wasn't even in the room, and the lady that was doing the work on the tumor had a thing on her head measuring her brain. And the right side of your brain is your subconscious, and the left side of your brain is your conscious mind. You know what I mean? So it's opposite. Your brain is actually opposite, because your left hand would be your female and your right hand would be your male, right? Because the female is negative, it receives, and the male is positive, it projects. When it comes to your brain, that's flipped. Okay? And whenever the woman healing, the woman with the cyst, whenever she was doing her mantras or whatever it was she was doing, her right side of the brain had almost no activity, okay? And the color showed the activity. It was all white, which means little to no activity. But her left side of her brain was going through all the color schemes, you know, and he said like red, yellow, blue, green, and then I think he said purple. And that's like the 5 ones of the fucking pentagram. But anyways, so it was pretty profound. And then when he said that, that's like, fuck, this is absolutely the event. And the next idea came into my head because I was watching these things way back when about there's this this world fucking court government thing that looks into stuff, and China apparently is really bad, and people were praying in all these different spiritual faiths, very spiritual, doing meditating out, and I guess they all got rounded up and put in jail for practicing this religion, and then from there it goes to they were becoming organ donors, and how China has the biggest online record book of people's organs, and you can just grab whatever organ you want as you need it, you know what I mean? Like, they have this shit on hand, on stock all the time, and it was like, well, how is that possible? Because they have all these people, they get spiritual practitioners, because these people aren't smoking, aren't drinking, aren't doing this bad shit, like the most of us regular people, and so because of that, these people are better candidates for having an online organ fucking documentation. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I think I made an episode talking about this, so it kind of sucks now. But the fact that they focused on a hospital and something evil like organ donating and making China look bad, well, the idea that came to my head this day was like, well, Greg Brain's talking about how China has all these no medicine hospitals. Well, if they have no medicine hospitals and they're using people's minds to heal other people's cancers, well, what would be the best way to stop that information from coming here, or people to look into that information? Well, you put a bunch of propaganda out about how China has these hospitals full of fucking people, or has all these hospital records, has a hospital I guess fucking catalog with people's, and they're running up spiritual people. You make China look really bad, basically, especially in the field of that. So this way, when people start talking about the non-medical hospitals in China being good, then people are going to think, oh no, I wouldn't fucking go to China. That is the first thing they hear. They want to release the bad shit before the good shit can be released. You know, Greg Braden's one person talking about this versus, you know, all the people talking about how bad China was. So all this came to me at the same time. So this is what I wanted to talk about, and this is why in my last episode I said in the next 5 to 10 years you're going to see everybody getting into this, because the more people that do it, we affect more people that we can't see. I mean, we're all technically attached. We're all technically linked to each other. So, and it's just going to become more and more and more popular. People are going to get more and more results. You know, people like my wife that don't even believe it, that just try it out of sheer desperation, and then it happens. They have no choice but to believe in the results. Like, this shit is absolutely, positively pro-fucking-found. And it's just going to keep changing the world, and we're just going to keep going, getting better and bigger, and they've never been able to suppress it. Now, no matter what they do, I don't think they could if they wanted to. So that's something I wanted to share with everybody, because, you know, it goes in line with the whole focus on what you want kind of thing, because this is the secret. This is the secret they don't want you to know. The law of attraction came out, and that scared them, but they have so many people out there saying it's not true, and then it is true, and then it was packaged wrong. And I believe that the law of attraction does work, but it shouldn't be called that. And I'm not going to fucking tear it down because it has helped people, and anything that helps anybody is good in my book. But that being said, they got fucking made fun of and torn up and a whole bunch of things because of that. So they figured it was over. They released the law of attraction. It didn't get any traction, and it's one and done. So they can pass it off. But then you got people coming out there talking about magic over and over again on YouTube, and YouTube's being forced to suppress it or whatever the case is. And people coming out and actively debunking it and all this other crap, and they think it's not going to happen. But and on the same day, that whole 9/11 thing, I've already heard it by Greg Braden, but it played again, the 9/11 thing where the scientists actually saw that big pole shift happen, and it was the day of 9/11 happening. And I said before that, I don't know who or what happened there, if it's fraud, if it's fake, if it's a scam, if people died or not. I get pretty emotional thinking about it, so there's probably something to it. But as bad as that was, okay, as destructive as that was, that shit brings people together. I know it perpetuated war and all that, but as bad as that was, and it's bad, but it showed us that people have an effect on the physical plane. We can affect the fucking poles, the fucking magnetic field, our hearts affect that when we're sad. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. So, as bad as that thing was, out of everything that's dark, light comes out of it. And now we have that among multiple exercises and experiments that we can draw on to prove it. And if these are the situations and the shows you watch, rather than stuff that puts programming that you don't want in your head, if these are the things you watch, then this is what your life is going to become. If you only watch things that are going to help you manifest and become rich and make your magic more powerful and reaffirm over and over again in your head that this stuff is real, then it's going to be infallibly real. And this is why I said, if you have already gotten into magic prior to everybody slowly getting into it in the next 5 to 10 years, then you are going to be ahead of the curve. You might be put in teaching roles. There's going to be schools, jobs, stores, classes, courses. I mean, there's already all those things, and we're a very small part of the population doing this shit. So imagine what happens whenever the majority of the population starts this shit. Anybody who's already been doing it, who's got experience, and who's successful at it, is going to be considered a guru. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. So everyone out there listening to me and doing this, just if you're having a hard time right now, hold on to this, because I'm telling you right now, with time, everything gets easier. The more time goes by that you keep watching and keep practicing, the better and easier this shit gets, okay? And then, you're just going to look back at it and it's going to be, oh, fuck, I'm so glad I stuck to it, because I'm telling you, you're going to say 10 years is a long time, 5 years is a long time, but it's really not. And, it's not even going to take that long. If you stick to this, if you're in your neophyte right now, this year is going to come and go, or 6 months, however long, it's going to come and go either way. So you might as well be at least doing this, sticking to it, And then after that year, you're going to see whenever you get into the first grade, you're going to start making things happen left, right, and center. And then not only that, like our powers are doubling right now. We're getting an extra boost. So anyways, I have to stop it there for a second, but I'll come back on in a bit.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm back again after the parade and all that shit. Pretty fun, I guess. My kids do their thing. I enjoyed it. But, we got hooked up with a whole whack of fucking candy canes, chocolates, like Halloween shit we got. But, I gotta say, the highlight of it was a dude near the Tim Hortons, and if there's anybody performing all this thing, you'll kind of put it in perspective, but in our East End, where the Eastport Mall once was, there was a man there with a fucking big Jesus fucking banner, and there were a few other people around him, but they weren't really saying anything. They were just kind of walking with him, supporting him, having a Bible. And this Christmas parade doesn't have Jesus at the end. However, there's always at least one float, sometimes more, and I only see one float. But I was at the beginning of the parade, and I went to the end of the parade, so I probably missed a few in the middle. But there's always one or two floats that actually have a Jesus theme. Always have the Jesus nativity scene or something to that effect, whatever the case is. But, he's not the end. He's not the important part. It's it's Santa that's the important part. And, you know, I can understand hardcore Christians getting upset about the fact that Christmas is now more about a mythical man named Saint Nick or Santa Claus. And he's the most important part, and he's at the end. And that's because instead of giving the gift of taking away the sins of the world like Jesus did, he's giving people gifts for free for being good little boys and good little girls. So, in a sense, they kind of work good together, right? If you're following the Ten Commandments, so then you're being a good kid. You're being a good kid, a good person. Sorry, ambulance is just going by. If you're following the Ten Commandments, you're being a good kid, you're being a good person. You know, and then Jesus doesn't give people presents for that. He gives you a promise. Because, you know, it's not a one and done. You're always going to keep sinning over and over again. So you don't get to just, you know, not sin and get a gift. But there's a yearly gift giveaway for all the not naughty kids. And then this way, you know, the kids that were good, that maintained it, well, they get something for that, for being a good little Christian and all that. But on top of this, more important, I would say, not everybody's Christian. More now than ever. So, for a Christian man who believes that the Christmas parade is wrong, well, it's called Christmas, but it's not, you know, it's not called the Jesus Christ Nativity Story Parade. It's called Christmas. And Christmas might be, you know, it is because of the name of Christ, but that wasn't Jesus' name to begin with. Okay? Yes, Christians and Christ that's all part of the religion, but if you're saying that at this time we should be celebrating the birth of Jesus, well, then why are we calling it Jesus of Nazareth? It wasn't Jesus Christ until way later on. You know what I mean? So technically, you could say, I say Xmas, because I heard Bert say it. He says, I not say Christmas, say Xmas. He talked about still, you know, celebrating Xmas and all the other Christian weird holidays that don't make sense. But to also do your things, and then this way you can have your kid get involved in your spirituality as well. Because if you take away all the fun spiritualities, then, you know, what are the odds they're going to want to partake in your spirituality, period. So, and that should tell you something just in that sentence, that, you know, the Christian religion have these days where Santa Claus is a Christian thing, where you get gifts. You know, it goes back to the three wise men. What's a wise man? And the wisest man in the world was King Solomon. Okay, so when they changed it to wise men, first it was three mages, which is magical practitioner. You know, an old mage is a magical practitioner. He's an adept. Okay, but it was three mages in one of the earliest ones I've ever seen, and they changed that to the three wise men. Well, what are wise men? Wise men are men that have lots of wisdom. Yoda is filled with wisdom, and that motherfucker's magical. Point is, these three wise men, three mages, came and brought gifts. And if you still don't think, okay, well, that could be just a name. No, they gave him fucking incense. They gave him frankincense and myrrh. They gave him gold. And there was another thing that was spiritual there, sure, another gift. But I think it was gold, silver, frankincense, myrrh was what the gifts were. So, boom, there it is. You know, the gold and silver, they're alchemists, they're magicians. They fucking transmuted and changed that fucking, it probably used to be copper or lead, and they changed it up to that shit form. Not only that, but gold, if you have the money to have gold, you can use gold the same way I use copper in a lot of wands. I got copper around my wrist. You can use gold in a lot of things. There's a reason it's part of the sun worship. That's why a lot of these higher places, higher cult people with lots of money, well, the sun worship, because the sun is, you know, Venus would be a great one to worship, but they gave her copper. So there's not too many people making bracelets and jewelry out of copper. You can get a magnetic copper watch or copper bracelet, which does phenomenal things for you. And I found through various websites and different things online, because people that make it don't tell you exactly how they do it, but I looked and I saw the people that were trying to do what I was trying to do, and I managed to make my own. It's pretty sick, I gotta say. I have one on each wrist. The one on my right is a little bit bigger, or sorry, the one on my left is a little bit. Okay, the one on my right is more solid. There's more material there, but the one on my left is kind of like a net. My left hand would pull in energy, and my right hand pushes out energy. So the copper on the right hand, well, there's more copper there, it would amplify it, be able to stay there longer. The energy coming around my hand or whatever, it's there to add to it. Also with magnets within there as well. And on my left hand, it's like a great screen kind of going around my wrist, so it can filter it. If I don't want the energy coming to me, magnify it a bit, filter it through, transmute it, and I got some transformation rituals on there as well, stuff like that. But anyways, besides the point, but gold is definitely can be a very spiritual thing. There's a reason there's gold crossed with the Christ on it and all this shit. But anyways, point is, this guy at the fucking parade telling everybody that what we're doing is wrong, we should seek Christ. His boyfriend had one of those masks that have like a zombie face on it, this gangster on it. It actually looks pretty cool. He looked at him, he's like, "You need to find God, son." I know it's probably pretty fucking funny. I actually didn't get to go close to him because I was on the other side, but I could see him doing his preaching thing to everybody, and it's pretty fucking funny. But my mom's like, "Yeah, like who would do that? Because I'm afraid to do that." I'm like, "Well, he needs to read his own fucking book. You know, don't judge, because if you judge, then you're going to be judged." The same as you're judging somebody else. You can't judge people by what they believe, and that's right in the Bible. That's one of the most important fucking things in the Bible. And this guy is judging everyone here.
There are 2 satellites above the northern hemisphere. Every 30 minutes, they send a signal to the scientists of the Earth, and they tell us how strong the magnetic field of the Earth is. Now, the magnetic field of the Earth is important. The magnetic field of the Earth connects all life. It sustains all life. There is no them and us when it comes to the magnetic field of the Earth. There is only we. Every blade of grass, every hamster, every goldfish, every dog, every cat, every CEO of every corporation, every leader of every nation is connected to the magnetic field of the Earth. One day, scientists were looking at the information, and all of a sudden, boom, look at this. They'd never seen the magnetic field do this before. And the scientists say, what on earth? What on earth is happening on Earth to create this spike in the magnetic field? So they took the data and they overlaid it onto a calendar of days and months. That arrow is on a graph at a point that is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, September 11th, 2001. The first plane hit the first tower of the World Trade Center, September 11th, about 8:45 a.m. approximately. Scientists believe it took about 15 minutes for the images of the tragedy to travel around the world through the media, through the television signals and the satellites. And at 9 a.m., when the spike happened, scientists now believe that this is a spike that is the result of the collective emotion of hundreds of millions of humans feeling in their heart, not thinking, feeling the shock of the emotion, of the tragedy. And for the first time, scientists were able to document hundreds of millions of people in a
battery low
based experience had the power to actually be able to document hundreds of millions of people in a moment in time sharing a heart-based experience had the power to actually shift the magnetic field of the Earth that connects and sustains all life. And the scientists said, oh my God. There is a woman that comes into the room for healing. The healer is on one side of the wall. The woman receiving the healing is on the other side of the wall. The two women had never met. They had never spoken. The woman being healed has no idea who is on the other side of the wall. Time equals 0. This is the inflamed cyst on the ovary. 3 minutes later, look at what happens. Time equals 3. The tumor is shrinking. Time equals 7. 7 minutes later, the tumor no longer exists. It's gone. What's happening in the brain of the woman doing the healing? The scientists are scanning the brains. Let's look at the brain scan. The healing is beginning to happen. What is happening in the brain of the healer? Watch this. The left and the right brain. Something very interesting happens. Look at this. Look at this. The left brain, the logic, the thinking is becoming so inactive it doesn't even register. Look at the white. But the right brain links us with intuition, with emotion, with feeling, and look at what happens in the right brain. It's beginning, look at this. It goes from the blue to the green to the yellow. Look at this. Now the right brain is really active. What's happening in the left brain? Not very much. That is the answer. The left brain is very inactive. But look at what's happening to the woman's body. So whatever is happening between these two women, the healer is not using her left brain. She's not thinking, tumor, go away. She's not thinking, healing, be healed. She's not doing that. This suggests she's not thinking much at all. But she has activated her right brain, which is directly linked to the heart. The right brain and the heart are directly linked.
So our bodies are designed to heal themselves. And our own science now has shown every organ in every cell, every organ in our body has now been documented with the potential to heal itself. Even organs we were told could not heal themselves. Brain tissue, heart tissue, spinal cord tissue, pancreatic tissue, all has been documented at regeneration and healing under the right conditions and the right environment. So the thinking of science is that the environment must come from a pill or a machine. Exterior. Mm-hmm. Our most cherished traditions always told us that we had the ability to do this for ourselves, but science didn't really understand that. And now science is beginning to validate that we may create within our own bodies through the power of emotion, heart-based emotion, the very experiences that begin healing the human body.
Have you ever tried it on yourself?
I will share with you a story. The answer is yes. In the year 2000, I went for an annual physical, and my doctor told me that I had a growth inside of my bladder that should not be there, and needed to come out quickly. He scheduled surgery. And in the fall of 2000, I went into the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida, and underwent the anesthetic, went into the operating room for the full procedure. But here's what happened in between. Before I went into the doctor, I had studied all my life ancient traditions, ancient texts in the monasteries of Tibet and Bolivia and Peru. And I said, now, if I were ever going to apply these in my life, now is the time. So when my doctor gave me the diagnosis, I said, give me 2 weeks to work with myself. And I did everything that I'd been taught to do. But still, I had the doubt in my mind. So I went to the hospital. I went to the procedure. I woke up in the recovery room, and the doctor said, why are you here? He said, there's nothing inside of you to remove. He said,
you weren't operated at all?
He said, they used a scope. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they used the anesthetic. They put me under. They used a scope, and the scope showed that there was no reason to operate. There was nothing there. He says, why are you here?
Wow.
And I was still under anesthetic, and I tried to tell him about what I'd learned. It didn't work.
You have the chance now. What did you do?
Well, this is, I think, why it was good for me to have the experience, because I had studied all of the traditions, and I knew it was possible. But because I had the experience myself, I can look you in the eye, I can look at our listeners and our viewers, and I can say, I had this experience, and I know it's possible. And I also know that it may not be easy, because when our body has an illness or a disease, we lose the faith in our body. We lose trust. And we must work to overcome that. And I think it's the greatest lesson for any of us to learn, because once we discover that we have that ability, we feel differently about life and our friends and our families, and we feel differently about our relationship to the world. So I can look at you and say, what I did was all the things that I learned to do, to create the coherence, the heart-brain coherence, to heal the anger, to heal the hurt, heal the frustration, create the coherence between my heart and my brain to the best of my ability throughout the day. I did it as many times as I could. And I cannot say that is the only reason. As a scientist, I have to say I think it was a factor in the healing that I experienced.
I want to use my artificial intelligence to help humans live a better life.
Data science is revolutionizing the world. We defeat.
Tell us in their texts 2,500 years ago, very precise language, that every human lives in this earth in 3 worlds at the same time. We live in the world of thought, the world of feeling, and the world of emotion. And their texts actually say to us, when these 3 become one, when the thought and the feeling and the emotion are merged, are married together into a single potent force, then when you say to the mountain, move, the mountain will move. Now, I used to believe that this was a metaphor. And now I have seen in the monasteries of Tibet, and I've seen with the holy and the sacred people in Bolivia and Peru, in the native traditions of the desert Southwest, in the medicineless hospitals in Beijing, China. This is not a metaphor. It is a literal fact. When thought, feeling, and emotion become one, we literally can change the stuff our world is made of. We can rearrange the atoms of matter through the belief waves that emanate from our heart. So the question is, when we are experiencing judgment and ego, what is that saying to us really? Well, the first thing it's telling us is that we're not in our heart, because the heart has no judgment and the heart has no ego. When we are experiencing those qualities, it is coming from our mind. It's coming from our inner child. It's coming from our fear, from our families, our perceptions, our conditioning. But it's not coming from our heart. When something hurts us in life, when something crosses our path that causes us pain, our first reaction is to move away from it, to say, I don't want that. And that is when the judgment comes in. If we can embrace the experiences when someone or an experience hurts us in life, not that we like the experience or we want to have it again, but the ancients say that we should bless the experience. And this sounds very strange, to bless the things that hurt you. But here's what happens. When we begin to bless the things that cause us the pain, the blessing is simply the acknowledgement. When you say, I bless the person who has just been dishonest with me. I bless the person who has violated my trust, betrayed my confidence. and you say that again and again, and you say it out loud, what begins to happen is the verbal expression brings the physical energy up from the heart into the body. And soon your body becomes warm and you have tears in your eyes and you say, I bless this person, I bless this person. And it is the blessing that relieves the charge of the judgment for just a moment. And that's all we need. Because for just a moment, when the charge is relieved, we can replace the hurt with something else. And the ancients say that something else is what we call beauty. Beauty is a powerful force in our world, and it already exists everywhere. The ancient Essenes and the Native Americans alike, they say that beauty is already everywhere in everything. Our job is to find that beauty, to seek it out. So rather than judging the experiences, when they come to us, if we can look at each experience as a blessing, and when we find ourselves hurt, say, again, yes, I feel hurt, so acknowledge it first. Secondly, what is this hurt saying to me? What voice am I hearing? What does it tell me about my life? And bless the hurt now that is giving us information about ourselves. And as we begin that experience, it is much easier then for our thoughts, feelings, and emotions to become one so that we can move that mountain when it comes across our path. The question then that the scientist asks is, if we know the experiences work, if we know that when one person or a group of people come together and they share a common experience in their heart for a period of time, such as the International Peace Project in the Middle East, where people came together to feel the feelings of peace during the Lebanese-Israeli War in the early 1980s, during the time they created those feelings, statistically, terrorist activities dropped to zero. Crimes against people declined. Emergency hospital room visits declined. Traffic accidents declined. And so the scientists ask, if this prayer is so powerful, then why didn't it last? And this is the crux, the secret of the ancient traditions that has been missed by so many people today. Because this experience in our heart was viewed by the scientists as something you do for a moment in time. So you go about your daily life, and at a certain time, you stop your daily life and you do this heart experience, this prayer. And when the prayer is over, you stop the prayer and go back to your life. And the crux of our most cherished, sacred, and ancient traditions is very clear that this experience of the heart is not something that we do. It is something that we become. It is something that we live in our lives. Life becomes the prayer. Every moment of every day is the prayer. And because this modality of prayer, it's called the lost mode of prayer, feeling-based prayer, because the prayer is based in a feeling, and we can have a feeling all the time. We can have a feeling in our cars, driving on the highway. We can have a feeling in the office, in the school, with our families, alone in the park. We can always have a feeling, and that means we can always be in prayer. But it's not something that we do in a moment. It's a way of living. It's a way of life. It's something we become. And when we do that, the prayer never ends. And that is the secret to maintaining the powerful effects that are documented by science and that the ancient texts and the Essenes tell us are possible in our lives. If I had the opportunity, if I came to this world from another world, and I could ask one question of myself in this lifetime, based on what I knew here that I couldn't find in that other world, I would ask the question, what is the one thing that we have in this world that would wake us up and remind us that we're a family, and that we are more than the differences that have separated us in the past, and that we're too precious to kill ourselves in war? What is the one thing that could be awakened in this lifetime and shared with every human on the face of the earth that would remind them of that truth? Because I believe it is a truth. That's what I would ask. The principle of resonance is perhaps one of the most powerful principles in nature, because it allows tremendous change to happen very quickly with a very few people. In in the kinds of things that we're talking about now. And the reason is because if those few people learn the language of resonance with the divine matrix, with the field, if they choose peace and healing in their bodies, and they find that they can convey that in the divine matrix, the focused power of knowing the language is stronger than the chaotic power of not understanding the language. So many people in chaos is what we see in our cities right now. A very few people focused that understand the language may transcend. I'm not going to say that they overpower or that they win. I'll say that they transcend. They're no longer locked into the negativity from those other people. And it's because of the principle of resonance. When we say the practice for many people in the West, again, it sounds like something that we do sometimes. And the key to all of the traditions is that it becomes a way of life rather than something that we do sometimes. Our conditioning in the West is that our spiritual practice is something that we do at the end of the day when the children are fed and the bills are paid and the dishes are done and the clothes are clean and the lunches are prepared for the next day, and then we go into a room and close the door and turn on the music and light the incense and burn a candle, and by then it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we're too tired to do anything. We take a deep breath and say a mantra and go to bed. The point is, and that's an exaggeration, but for many people, the point is that their spiritual practice is compressed into a few moments after everything else is finished in our culture, ours being the West. However, you go into the Native American cultures in North America, South America, again into the monasteries in Egypt and Tibet, their entire lives are the spiritual practice. And then every once in a while, they will stop that spiritual practice for a moment to make change for 20 euros. It's just the opposite of the way we think about life. So again, it's about becoming the practice and allowing it to be a way of life rather than viewing it as something that we do in a moment in time. And this is, we do programs all over the world, and people come after the program 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and they say, great program, where is the next program? What should I study next? And I have to say to them, there is no more. Go home and experience and live what it is that you've learned here. But for some people, the diversion, it's easier to go from workshop to workshop and study to study and teacher to teacher rather than embrace and live what they've learned already in their lives. Every moment of every day, your heart is having a conversation with your brain. Every human heart, around the heart, is a field of energy. 5 to 8 feet, 2 to 3 meters diameter. And this field of energy can be measured now in ways that make it very useful to us. The Institute of Heart Math has designed equipment that will help us to measure this field every moment of every day. Your heart is sending signals to your brain, telling your brain what kind of energy to send to your body. Every moment of every day, there is a signal from your heart to your brain. What we now know is, when I was in school, and when many of our listeners were in school, we were taught that this is a physical reality made of atoms. And our atoms would look like little solar systems. They were modeled as little solar systems, things in the middle called a nucleus, with other things orbiting them like electrons. And those days are long gone. We now look at atoms rather than things orbiting around other things, we look at them as concentrations of energy in space and time, where there are no clear-cut things. Now, where this gets important is that the scientists, and this is in the standard physics textbooks, this is no surprise what I'm about to say, is if you change the field of energy that the atom lives in, you change the atom. You can change that field electrically, or you can change it magnetically. And there are terms for the effects. The Zeeman effect, the Stark effect are well-documented effects of electrical and magnetic changes in the field that change the atom. Where, while it sounds technical and maybe not relevant, where it gets really relevant very fast, is our hearts are the strongest bioelectrical and magnetic field generators in our bodies. Our hearts generate stronger electrical fields than our brains. They generate stronger magnetic fields than our brains. Our hearts are 5,000 times as powerful magnetically than our brains. And we hear about EKGs of our hearts. They're up to 100 times stronger than the EEG, the electrical information in our brains. So when we create thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, compassion, prayers of forgiveness in our hearts, that's the words that we call those experiences. But to the field, what we're doing is we're creating electrical and magnetic waves in here that are now known to change the stuff out here. And in that way, we are linked. It's not that our feeling changed something in this three-dimensional world. Rather, our feelings are speaking to the blueprint in the higher dimensions, and we're seeing the shadow of that change in our physical world. The father of quantum physics, Max Planck, actually said that the matter that we see in our world doesn't exist. He says the stuff we're made out of doesn't even exist, and the world that we see doesn't exist the way we believe it does. What he said was what we see as matter is here because of the existence of what he called a conscious and intelligent mind. And these are his precise words. And he followed that statement by saying that underlying this mind is the matrix of all matter. And this is the coin he termed in 1944. Of course, the movie series was based on the studies that came afterward, but it's actually been around since the mid-20th century. I was trained as a scientist, and in my training, there was never an allowance for the possibility this field could exist. So this field, the matrix, is the field of intelligent, non-conventional energy. It doesn't work the way electricity or broadcast energy works. And perhaps that's one of the reasons it's taken so long for science to catch up, because our equipment isn't built to detect this kind of energy. Our feelings are speaking to the blueprint in the higher dimensions, and we're seeing the shadow of that change in our physical world. As a matter of fact, in the last 100 years, science has missed the mark twice in terms of their explanation, the story that science gives of how our world works. And we're now paying the price for where science got it wrong, essentially. And it's coming full circle. It's being corrected. But the first place that this happened was with the belief that the space between things is empty. And now we know that nothing could be further from the truth. There's a lot going on in what we always thought was empty space, but from the experiments that were performed in 1887, the very famous Michelson-Morley experiments, to detect whether or not this field was there, when those experiments were interpreted as proving the field wasn't there, over 100 years ago, from that point forward, our science has been based in the belief that everything is separate from everything else. What happens in one place doesn't have any effect on anything else. And now we know that these two assumptions are flat wrong. There is something in the nothing, and we do have the ability through our hearts, what is called coherent heart-based emotion, to create the fields in our body. Appears to be a mirror in that the quantum soup of all possibilities, if you will, that exists as this field will mirror back to us. And what makes it so significant in our lives is the fact that, number one, through this field, all matter appears to be connected. And the word that science is using for this connection now is called entanglement. What entanglement suggests is that when something happens in one place in this field, in the divine matrix, it can be in another room next to us, it can be halfway around the world, that the effects of that something can be felt almost everywhere simultaneously. So let me just describe what I mean by that a little bit. There was they took a particle of the stuff our world is made of. It's called a photon, a little packet of light, particle of light, if you will. And they wanted two identical particles. So they took this one photon and they broke it into two. So both pieces had the same properties. And they had a specialized device where they could fire these in opposite directions at the same time. 7 miles for one particle in one direction, 7 miles in the other direction. When they reach their destinations, they're now 14 miles apart. They're using fiber optic cables to do this. And once those particles are at their destination, they can begin the experiments. And what they found was whatever they would do to one particle, in a moment in time, the other one acted like it just had the experience faster than it could have if this one were transmitting the information to the other one. Sometimes this one would act like it was having the experience before this one even finished its experience. They said they were tickling or disturbing the particles. They would change the charge or change the spin rate or force the particle to go take path A or path B. But whatever they were doing over here, this particle always had the identical experience, as if they were still connected even though they were physically separate. And the reason this experiment is so important is it is now demonstrating to the scientific mind what the ancient indigenous traditions have always said, and that is once matter is physically connected, even though it may become separate and distant from where it was originally, it's always linked energetically.
There are 2 satellites above the northern hemisphere. Every 30 minutes, they send a signal to the scientists of the Earth, and they tell us how strong the magnetic field of the Earth is. Now, the magnetic field of the Earth is important. The magnetic field of the Earth connects all life. It sustains all life. There is no them in us when it comes to the magnetic field of the Earth. There is only we. Every blade of grass, every hamster, every goldfish, every dog, every cat, every CEO of every corporation, every leader of every nation is connected to the magnetic field of the Earth. One day, scientists were looking at the information, and all of a sudden, boom, look at this. They've never seen the magnetic field do this before. And the scientists say, what on earth? What on earth is happening on Earth to create this spike in the magnetic field? So they took the data and they overlaid onto a calendar of days and months. That arrow is on the graph at a point that is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, September 11th, 2001. The first plane hit the first tower of the World Trade Center, September 11th, about 8:45 a.m. approximately. Scientists believe it took about 15 minutes for the images of the tragedy to travel around the world through the media, through the television signals and the satellites. And at 9 a.m., when this spike happened, scientists now believe that this...
In this series, I'm going to teach you about brain and heart coherence. And with this knowledge, what if you could strengthen your immune system by changing your thoughts and feelings? To be more present, to make better decisions, to think beyond the limitations or the conditions in your environment. We're seeing common people around the world doing the uncommon. In a sense, becoming supernatural.
Fucking commercial.
And I'm
is a spike that is the result of the collective emotion of hundreds of millions of humans feeling in their heart, not thinking, feeling the shock of the emotion, of the tragedy. And for the first time, scientists were able to document hundreds of millions of people in a moment in time sharing a heart-based experience had the power to actually shift the magnetic field of the earth that connects and sustains all life. And the scientists said, oh my God. There is a woman that comes into the room for healing. The healer is on one side of the wall. The woman receiving the healing is on the other side of the wall. The two women had never met. They had never spoken. The woman being healed has no idea who is on the other side of the wall. Time equals 0. This is the inflamed cyst on the ovary. 3 minutes later, look at what happens. Time equals 3. The tumor is shrinking. Time equals 7. 7 minutes later, the tumor no longer exists. It's gone. What's happening in the brain of the woman doing the healing? The scientists are scanning the brains. Let's look at the brain scan. The healing is beginning to happen. What is happening in the brain of the healer? Watch this. The left and the right brain, something very interesting happens. Look at this. Look at this. The left brain, the logic, the thinking is becoming so inactive it doesn't even register. Look at the white. But the right brain links us with intuition, with emotion, with feeling, and look at what happens in the right brain. It's beginning, look at this. It goes from the blue to the green to the yellow. Look at this. Now the right brain is really active. What's happening in the left brain? Not very much. That is the answer. The left brain is very inactive. But look at what's happening to the woman's body. So whatever is happening between these two women, the healer is not using her left brain. She's not thinking, tumor, go away. She's not thinking, healing, be healed. She's not doing that. This suggests she's not thinking much at all. But she has activated her right brain, which is directly linked to the heart. The right brain and the heart are directly linked.
So our bodies are designed to heal themselves. And our own science now has shown every organ in every cell, every organ in our body has now been documented with the potential to heal itself. Even organs we were told could not heal themselves. Brain tissue, heart tissue, spinal cord tissue, pancreatic tissue, all has been documented at regeneration and healing under the right conditions and the right environment. So the thinking of science is that the environment must come from a pill or a machine.
Exterior.
Mm-hmm. Our most cherished tradition.
In this series,
always told us that we had the ability to do this for ourselves, but science didn't really understand that. And now science is beginning to validate that we may create within our own bodies through the power of emotion, heart-based emotion, the very experiences that began healing the human body.
Have you ever tried it on yourself?
I will share with you a story. The answer is yes. In the year 2000, I went for an annual physical, and my doctor told me that I had a growth inside of my bladder that should not be there, and needed to come out quickly. He scheduled surgery. And in the fall of 2000, I went into the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida, and underwent the anesthetic, went into the operating room for the full procedure. But here's what happened in between. Before I went into the doctor, I had studied all my life ancient traditions, ancient texts in the monasteries of Tibet and Bolivia and Peru. And I said, now, if I were ever going to apply these in my life, now is the time. So when my doctor gave me the diagnosis, I said, give me 2 weeks to work with myself. And I did everything that I'd been taught to do. But still, I had the doubt in my mind. So I went to the hospital. I went to the procedure. I woke up in the recovery room, and the doctor said, why are you here? He said, there's nothing inside of you to remove. He said,
you weren't operated at all.
He said, they used a scope. Okay, so they used the anesthetic. They put me under. They used the scope, and the scope showed that there was no reason to operate. There was nothing there. He says, why are you here?
Wow.
And I was still under anesthetic, and I tried to tell him about what I'd learned. It didn't work.
You have the chance now. What did you do?
Well, this is, I think, why it was good for me to have the experience, because I had studied all of the traditions, and I knew it was possible. But because I had the experience myself, I can look you in the eye, I can look at our listeners and our viewers, and I can say, I had this experience, and I know it's possible. And I also know that it may not be easy, because when our body has an illness or a disease, we lose the faith in our body. We lose trust. And we must work to overcome that. And I think it's the greatest lesson for any of us to learn, because once we discover that we have that ability, we feel differently about life and our friends and our families, and we feel differently about our relationship to the world. So I can look at you and say, what I did was all the things that I'd learned to do to create the coherence, the heart-brain coherence, to heal the anger, to heal the hurt, heal the frustration, create the coherence between my heart and my brain to the best of my ability throughout the day. I did it as many times as I could. And I cannot say that is the only reason. As a scientist, I have to say I think it was a factor in the healing that I experienced. Well, almost universally, ancient texts and traditions have reminded us that we are connected. They've said that we are one, that we are part of our world, that we're part of one another, that we're part of the earth and the changes in the earth. In the last years of the 20th and now the first years of the early 21st century, science is now giving us that reason for our logical mind to make the connection, to see how we're related and how we influence the world, and how by honoring that connection through our hearts, we literally have the power to influence the very fields of this planet to sustain life in the world, sustain the health and the healing and the well-being of our bodies. And it's all about the magnetic fields of the earth. Where this really came into focus was around the events of September 11th, 2001. It was during that time that the United States has 2 satellites. They're called the GOES, G-O-E-S, Geosynchronous Environmental Satellites, I believe is what they're called. One positioned in the northern hemisphere, one positioned in the southern hemisphere. And the role of these satellites is to measure the magnetic fields of the earth and send back readings every 30 minutes. And those readings normally fall within a certain range of data that scientists are relatively used to seeing. Well, it was in September of 2001 that scientists began to see some readings that were off the map, just off the scale compared to what they'd seen in the past. And they said, well, what's happening? What is it that could be influencing the magnetic fields of the entire planet to such a degree that we're seeing these big spikes that our satellites are sending back? We've never seen these before. They overlaid the data from the satellites onto a calendar of months and days, and lo and behold, what they found is that the spike was occurring precisely during the time of September 11th, 2001, and even more precisely that the first spike occurred 15 minutes after the first plane hit the first tower in the World Trade Center. Now, the reason this is so important to a scientist is because for 300 years, our science has been based on 2 false assumptions. The first false assumption is that everything is separate from everything else. That what happens in one place has no effect on what happens anywhere else. And if it looks like it does, it's only a coincidence. The second false assumption is that our inner experiences of thought, feeling, emotion, and belief have no effect on the world beyond our bodies. Based on those two false assumptions that have been accepted for 300 years by scientists, I can see why there would be a disconnect when they're looking at magnetic fields of the Earth spiking precisely the moment the human emotion of the planet is focused on a disaster. This led to a series of studies, and the bottom line to the studies is this. What they found is that it is human emotion, specifically the magnetic fields produced by the human heart during certain kinds of emotion, that now are documented as extending far beyond our bodies into the physical world, and now to such a degree that our satellites hundreds of miles above the surface are able to pick these up. This has led to a number of studies now showing that when a certain number of people come together and they choose in a moment of time to create a precise emotion in their hearts, that emotion literally can intentionally influence the very fields that sustain the life on planet Earth. These fields are now implicated in everything from the immune response of humans throughout the planet, climate, weather patterns, cycles of war and peace, our ability to solve problems, our cognitive abilities. All of these, as different as they sound from one another, are all linked to our relationship to the magnetic fields of the Earth. So what makes this so beautiful is every human on the planet is linked to the field. But not every human on the planet has to be consciously aware of their relationship to benefit from what a relatively few number of people come to understand. And the bottom line is this, is that when we choose to feel feelings that create what is called coherence in our bodies. Coherence is the language, the quality of the language between our heart and our brain. Certain kinds of heart-based experiences, such as appreciation, gratitude, forgiveness, care, compassion, those are the ancient understandings that have always been taught in the truest traditions of our past, and now our own science is finding that those same traditions are now documenting this very real effect in our hearts. When we can feel those feelings in our bodies, they are mirrored in the field, and everyone benefits from the experience of relatively few. The human heart is now documented as the strongest generator of both electrical and magnetic fields in the body. Now, this is important because we've always been taught that the brain is where the action is. The brain has an electrical field, it does have a magnetic field, but they're relatively weak compared to the heart. The heart is about 100 times stronger electrically and up to 5,000 times stronger, 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the brain. And the reason this is important is because the physical world as we know it is made of those two fields of energy, electrical and magnetic fields of energy, electromagnetic fields. Our own physics books now tell us if we can change either the magnetic field of an atom or the electrical field of the atom, by doing that we literally change that atom. We change the stuff that our bodies in this world are made of. And it appears now that the human heart is designed to do both, to change both the electrical field and the magnetic field of our bodies and our world, and they do so in response to the emotions that we create between our heart and our brain. Well, I've had many questions from people asking me how these discoveries relate to what is now known as the law of attraction. What we find is this: it's less about attraction and more about a mirroring. And here's what I mean by that. The world around us, our own science now is telling us there's a field of energy that underlies all physical reality. In 1944, the father of quantum theory, Max Planck, identified this field, and he called it the matrix. That's where this term came from. What we're now beginning to understand is that when we create the feelings of what we choose to experience in our lives, everything from conscious choices of the perfect relationship or abundance in our lives, or the healing in our bodies, or the healing in the bodies of our loved ones, that those feelings are creating the patterns of magnetic and electrical field in our hearts that are literally rearranging the stuff of this quantum soup, this quantum essence, allowing the pattern of what we have claimed in our hearts to become manifest in the world around us. So it's less about attracting from a scientific perspective and more about consciously creating the template within us, knowing that the stuff of the universe will congeal around that template in the world around us to simply mirror, reflect what we've claimed.
If you haven't seen Missing Links, it's time to...
Well, almost universally, ancient texts and traditions have reminded us that we are connected. They've said that we are one, that we are part of our world, that we're part of one another, that we're part of the earth and the changes in the earth. In the last years of the 20th and now the first years of the early 21st century, science is now giving us that reason for our logical mind to make...
If you haven't seen Missing Links, it's time to catch...
The ancient Essenes tell us in their texts 2,500 years ago, very precise language, that every human lives in this earth in 3 worlds at the same time. We live in the world of thought, the world of feeling, and the world of emotion. And their texts actually say to us, when these 3 become one, when the thought and the feeling and the emotion are merged, are married together into a single potent force, then when you say to the mountain, move, the mountain will move. Now, I used to believe that this was a metaphor. And now I have seen in the monasteries of Tibet, and I've seen with the holy and the sacred people in Bolivia and Peru, in the native traditions of the desert Southwest, in the medicineless hospitals in Beijing, China. This is not a metaphor. It is a literal fact. When thought, feeling, and emotion become one, we literally can change the stuff our world is made of. We can rearrange the atoms of matter through the belief waves that emanate from our heart. So the question is, when we are experiencing judgment and ego, what is that saying to us really? Well, the first thing it's telling us is that we're not in our heart, because the heart has no judgment and the heart has no ego. When we are experiencing those qualities, it is coming from our mind. It's coming from our inner child. It's coming from our fear, from our families, our perceptions, our conditioning. But it's not coming from our heart. When something hurts us in life, when something crosses our path that causes us pain, our first reaction is to move away from it, to say, I don't want that. And that is when the judgment comes in. If we can embrace the experiences when someone or an experience hurts us in life, not that we like the experience or we want to have it again, but the ancients say that we should bless the experience. And this sounds very strange, to bless the things that hurt you. But here's what happens. When we begin to bless the things that cause us the pain, the blessing is simply the acknowledgement. When we say, I bless the person who has just been dishonest with me. I bless the person who has violated my trust, betrayed my confidence. And you say that again and again, and you say it out loud. What begins to happen is the verbal expression brings the physical energy up from the heart into the body. And soon your body becomes warm and you have tears in your eyes. And you say, I bless this person, I bless this person. And it is the blessing that relieves the charge of the judgment for just a moment. And that's all we need. Because for just a moment, when the charge is relieved, we can replace the hurt with something else. And the ancients say that that something else is what we call beauty. Beauty is a powerful force in our world. and it already exists everywhere. The ancient Essenes and the Native Americans alike. They say that beauty is already everywhere in everything. Our job is to find that beauty, to seek it out. So rather than judging the experiences when they come to us, if we can look at each experience as a blessing, and when we find ourselves hurt, say, again, yes, I feel hurt, so acknowledge it first. Secondly, what is this hurt saying to me? What voice am I hearing? What does it tell me about my life? And bless the hurt now that is giving us information about ourselves. And as we begin that experience, it is much easier then for our thoughts, feelings, and emotions to become one so that we can move that mountain when it comes across our path. The question then that the scientist asks is, if we know the experiences work, if we know that when one person or a group of people come together and they share a common experience in their heart for a period of time, such as the International Peace Project in the Middle East, where people came together to feel the feelings of peace during the Lebanese-Israeli War in the early 1980s, during the time they created those feelings, statistically, terrorist activities dropped to zero. Crimes against people declined. Emergency hospital room visits declined. Traffic accidents declined. And so the scientists ask, if this prayer is so powerful, then why didn't it last? And this is the crux, the secret of the ancient traditions that has been missed by so many people today. Because this experience in our heart was viewed by the scientists as something you do for a moment in time. So you go about your daily life, and at a certain time, you stop your daily life, and you do this heart experience, this prayer. And when the prayer is over, you stop the prayer and go back to your life. And the crux of our most cherished, sacred, and ancient traditions is very clear that this experience of the heart is not something that we do. It is something that we become. It is something that we live in our lives. Life becomes the prayer. Every moment of every day is the prayer. And because this modality of prayer, it's called the lost mode of prayer, feeling-based prayer, because the prayer is based in a feeling, and we can have a feeling all the time. We can have a feeling in our cars, driving on the highway. We can have a feeling in the office, in the school, with our families, alone in the park. We can always have a feeling, and that means we can always be in prayer. But it's not something that we do in a moment. It's a way of living. It's a way of life. It's something that we become. And when we do that, the prayer never ends. And that is the secret to maintaining the powerful effects that are documented by science and that the ancient texts in the Essenes tell us are possible in our lives. If I had the opportunity, if I came to this world from another world, and I could ask one question of myself in this lifetime, based on what I knew here that I couldn't find in that other world, I would ask the question, what is the one thing that we have in this world that would wake us up and remind us that we're a family and that we are more than the differences that have separated us in the past and that we're too precious to kill ourselves in war? What is the one thing that could be awakened in this lifetime and shared with every human on the face of the earth that would remind them of that truth? Because I believe it is a truth. That's what I would ask. The principle of resonance is perhaps one of the most powerful principles in nature because it allows tremendous change to happen very quickly with a very few people in the kinds of things that we're talking about now. And the reason is because if those few people learn the language of resonance with the divine matrix, with the field, if they choose peace and healing in their bodies, and they find that they can convey that in the divine matrix, the focused power of knowing the language is stronger than the chaotic power of not understanding the language. So many people in chaos is what we see in our cities right now. A very few people focused that understand the language may transcend. I'm not going to say that they overpower or that they win. I'll say that they transcend. They're no longer locked into the negativity from those other people. And it's because of the principle of resonance. When we say the practice for many people in the West, again, it sounds like something that we do sometimes. And the key to all of the traditions is that it becomes a way of life rather than something that we do sometimes. Our conditioning in the West is that our spiritual practice is something that we do at the end of the day when the children are fed and the bills are paid and the dishes are done and the clothes are clean and the lunches are prepared for the next day, and then we go into a room and close the door and turn on the music and light the incense and burn a candle, and by then it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we're too tired to do anything. We take a deep breath and say a mantra and go to bed. The point is, and that's an exaggeration, but for many people, the point is that their spiritual practice is compressed into a few moments after everything else is finished in our culture, ours being the West. However, you go into the Native American cultures in North America, South America, again into the monasteries in Egypt and Tibet, their entire lives are the spiritual practice. And then every once in a while, they will stop that spiritual practice for a moment to make change for 20 euros. It's just the opposite of the way we think about life. So again, it's about becoming the practice and allowing it to be a way of life rather than viewing it as something that we do in a moment in time. And this is, we do programs all over the world, and people come after the program 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and they say, great program, where is the next program? What should I study next? And I have to say to them, there is no more. Go home and experience and live what it is that you've learned here. But for some people, the diversion, it's easier to go from workshop to workshop and study to study and teacher to teacher rather than embrace and live what they've learned already in their lives.
In this series, I'm going to teach you about brain and heart coherence.
If you haven't seen Missing Links, it's for the deep truth of our origins.
It takes about 72 hours is what the studies are showing. About 3 days. If you are choosing to create something new and it doesn't come to you easily at first, please do not give up. Because it takes about at least 3 days for these antennae to wire. That is because the information is not in here. Just to add to this, how real this is, researchers in Silicon Valley are now building the next generation computer chips, and guess what? They're not based on silica. They're based on droplets of water that are purified and very, very specific forms of structured water. And when they started pumping the information into that droplet of water, the water droplet was holding more information than could possibly be explained by the chip itself. And they said, where is the information going? And now they know that the chip, based in water, is storing information in a field that expands beyond the machine itself.
Purple wine with
Our identity is not inside our body. Our identity is picked up by protein antennas on the surface of our cells. The reality is our source is from the outside, and the signals get picked up by the proteins and then control the cells on the inside. This field provides 3 functions. It is the container, the field that connects all things. It is the container for everything that happens in our experience. Nothing exists beyond this container. It's the container. It is the bridge between our inner and our outer world, and it is the mirror in our external world for what we claim to believe in our inner world. This is the field.
The body is like a television set, and there's a broadcast coming in. Mind is not even in the body. If you get your mind in the outside, there's an opportunity at a level of communicating. This is a virtual reality suit. You jump into this suit, you drive it around, the experiences of this suit are sent back to source. That's when we start to recognize your brain activity is not contained in your head. You can use magnetoencephalograph probes outside of your head, and you can read your brain activity. So you're broadcasting back to the field. And that's why we can see a sunset. We can taste that chocolate. We can smell that rose.
How many of you saw the movie The Matrix? So remember in The Matrix when they would hook that little gadget to the back of their neck and they would download the programs and learn those things almost immediately. Remember that? The equivalent of that is what we did together in here yesterday. When we choose to make those changes in our lives, let's say you can't do it through your conscious mind. When you create the heart-brain harmony, that coherence, it's called optimal heart-brain coherence. And you've got that 0.1 hertz signal between your heart and your brain. That opens the door to the subconscious. That's the equivalent of plugging that cable in right at the base of your skull. And it's at that place where you insert the new beliefs, the new thoughts, the new ideas, the new ways of thinking. That is you downloading that new information very, very quickly.
We're not living our lives, we're living the lives of programs. If you don't like the program, the new biology is the one that says you can rewrite it. And if you rewrite it to make your creation not the one you bought as the creation, you will manifest heaven on earth. You will wake up every day with the glory of being in the most spectacular planet and the ability to create life.
So you know when you begin learning a foreign language, the words sometimes they seem awkward, and you learn phonetically, and you say the words, but they don't really mean much. And all of a sudden, you wake up one morning and like you're speaking Spanish, or you're speaking Tibetan, or you're speaking French, or whatever it is. You know how that happens. All of a sudden, it's like almost overnight. You say, well, what happened? And here's what the science is now telling us. All possibilities exist as information in the field. The information is not in the cells. What we do in the cells is we grow, and Bruce, it's exactly the term that I use, what are called soft antennae. So the way that the neurons wire and fire create the antenna that tune to the place in the field where that information lives. It is the very act of you striving to become more in one moment than you were in the last moment. It's the act of you reaching deep within yourself to grasp a new way of thinking. So a new language, or a new song, a guitar, a piano, or a new book to write, or a new title, a new poetry, or new sculpture, new art, whatever it is, that act is the impetus for the neurons to wire together to create the antenna that reach into the field where that information lives that you are asking to have access to. But the thing is, it doesn't happen spontaneously. It takes about 72 hours, is what the studies are showing. About 3 days. So it takes about 3 days for these neurons to hook up, to reach out and firmly establish the connection with another like neuron so that they're forming the antenna that tune to the place in the field where everything that you desire to understand or know or create or perform, it already exists.
If you haven't seen Missing Links, it's time to catch up on Season 1.
We want to show you the shortcuts that if you don't even have a clue what knowledge you might have that can make a difference. So yeah,
I'm going to share with you the science that is so new, it is not yet in the textbooks. It is the science that you and I and our children will use to solve the problems that we're leaving in the world today. It's a very different way of thinking about things. I'm going to tell you, there is a language. There is a language that lives in every human that walks this earth. It's a language of no words. It's a language that was lost to Western traditions 1,700 years ago. We're going to learn how to use this language to speak to the divine matrix. Every one of you is speaking to this field every day. The question is, do you know what you're saying to the field? We ask the question, who are we? What we know is that we're made of quantum energy. For 70 years, scientists have been telling us that we are little particles of quantum energy. And now we believe them. But now scientists say those little quantum particles can do miraculous things, amazing things. But the scientists say those miracles have nothing to do with your life. For example, quantum particles, we know, can exist as a physical particle, like this. It's a quantum particle. That particle can exist invisible. The particle is still there. It has just changed its form. Quantum particles can exist in one place in a moment in time. Quantum particles can exist in two places or many places at the same time, and they are always connected. They are always connected with one another. So the particles are always connected. Quantum particles can communicate with themselves in the past and in the future. This is very interesting. Scientists can take a quantum particle and they know everything there is to know about this particle. They know its rotation, its plus, its minus, its charge. In the present, now, they can take it into the future, and now, this is the past, this is the future. They can change the particle in the present, and it changes the particle in the past, even though the past already happened. So the question is, we're made of those particles. So can we do what these particles can do? We're made of quantum particles. Are they showing us our limits, or are they showing us our possibility, our potential? Can we do everything that those particles can do? The answer is yes. If it's based on what we believe to be true. Not what we think in our minds, what we believe in our hearts. And that is a very subtle, very powerful difference. Not the mind, the heart. Consciousness is what holds these particles together. Consciousness organizes the particles into your body and into this world. Here's what scientists say to us about the way this world works. Scientists are telling us now that in this field, all possibilities already exist in the quantum energy, in the soup of quantum possibility. All possibilities already exist. In the quantum possibilities, you are already healed. Peace has already happened. Joy is already everywhere. All of the greatest suffering, all of the greatest peace already exists in the quantum possibilities. And here's what they say happens with you and me. That with our mind, we reach in to those possibilities. We imagine our healing. We imagine the peace. We imagine our perfect relationship. We imagine the abundance in our lives with our mind. And that's how we lock that possibility into place. And with our heart, we give that possibility life. We breathe life into the image of our mind through the feeling in our heart and make it real in our world. I want to share with you the science of how this happens. We have to understand what a belief is. We talk about belief. What is a belief? Belief is the marriage. It is a union of thought and emotion. Thought and emotion. And now we have to define thought and emotion. This is an image from an ancient Sanskrit text. It shows the energy centers of the body. With the island, the chakras. They say that thought happens in the upper chakras, right here. This is thought. This is where we imagine the quantum possibility. The emotion happens in the creative center, in the lower chakras. This is emotion. And they say our emotions are only two: love, fear. So when we think a thought in our mind, we fuel that thought. We give our thought life through the love or the fear that we place into the thought. And when we do that, we create a feeling. And now we have a definition for feeling. Feeling is the union, the marriage of emotion and thought. What we think of a possibility and our love or our fear of that thought. What is the one energy center in the body that does not have the circle? What is the one center that we have not talked about here? The heart. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling doesn't happen in the mind. Feeling doesn't happen in the lower, well, a little bit, but not much, in the lower centers. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling and belief are connected. Feeling and belief. So in our hearts, we have hate, sadness, joy, compassion. These are feelings. These are not emotions. To have hate, sadness, joy, compassion, we must have a thought, and then the love or the fear for that thought that creates these feelings. So now we have a definition of feeling. So our belief translates the quantum possibilities that we imagine into the physical reality of our world. And I want to show you how. I want to show you how that happens. I don't want you just to believe me, to take my word. I want to show you the proof so your mind can see the proof. Belief is what translates those possibilities into the atoms of our world. The quantum possibility exists as waves only. But this world is made of atoms. So I think you're going to like what you're going to see. Do you remember a long time ago, when I was in school, and maybe when you were in school, we were told that the atom looks like this. Looks like a little solar system. Long time ago, remember? And we were taught that the atom is made of things. A thing in the center, and things that orbit, things that circulate. Okay? That's not what scientists believe today. Now the atom, they believe, looks like this. It looks like energy. The atom no longer looks like things. It looks like waves of energy rather than particles of things. Now this is very important. You're going to see why. I think you will like what you're going to see in just a moment. So the quantum atom is made of waves of energy rather than particles of things. And this is very important. This is very important. If you want to change an atom, you have to change the energy that the atom lives in. If you want to change the stuff, the physical stuff of our world, you must change the energy that that stuff exists within. We're going slowly because something big is about to happen here. Einstein said this very well. Einstein actually said the field that connects everything together is what he called the governing agency of the particle. Einstein said the field is what determines how the atom behaves. It's in the field. So the field that we're talking about, the field is made of electrical energy. It's made of...
If you could design your life exactly the way you want it to be, what would that look like? What kind of work would you be doing every day? How would your body look and feel? Who would you wake up next to every morning? What kind of impact would you be making on the world? I invite you to stop just imagining it and to start living it instead. Because you absolutely have the potential to do that, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. Welcome to Lifebook Online. Most people go all the way through life as complete strangers to themselves, never discovering their true desires, their talents and their virtues, or their highest form of contribution. No sense of personal meaning, no sense of their own identity. In other words, they don't have a clear vision for their life. But that doesn't have to be your story. With Lifebook Online, we're going to guide you step by step as you deeply examine the 12 categories of life that make you who you are. Lifebook Online is the world's premier lifestyle design system. It's an easy-to-follow 6-week process.
Experiment again and again and again, and every time the results were the same. In fact, they were able to determine how many people it takes to feel peace for peace to happen in that area. Here's what they found. Very small number. They said if you can get the square root of 1% of your population to feel peace, peace will happen. What does that number look like? Let me show you the math. These are very small numbers. The square root of 1% of the population. If you have a city of 1 million people, how many people are in Milan? Do we know? Approximately? 5 million? So, okay. Yeah, well. So, muchos personas, right? Okay, if you have a city of 1 million people, here's how the formula works. You take the number of people, total number of people, multiply it by 1%, so 1 million times 0.01 gives you the number 10,000. Okay, now you take the square root of 10,000, 100 people.
To be 20 years old, and this is the great... Mr. Peterson, first of all, I am a huge fan, and honestly, I'm about to be 20 years old, and this is the greatest day of my life, hearing you speak. I can be honest. And I had a question, because I understand what you're saying, and especially being in an academical setting, we are a huge number of students, and of course we have to navigate towards many things, especially for people who have come from other countries and therefore different cultures. If you could give one advice to us how we could be able to actually put our opinion out there and to actually make people listen and not to cause some mindless conflict with just yelling, what advice would you give us?
Learn to write. I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious about that. Because this like formalized thinking and to write.
What advice would you give us?
Learn to write. I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious about that. Because writing is formalized thinking. And so the way you write is, first of all, you need a problem. Because why write if you don't have a problem? So this is good advice if you're just writing an essay, by the way, for your classes. It's like, pick a bloody problem that you want to write about, because otherwise it's false right from the start. It's up to you to engage with the material until you find something that grips you, that you desire to investigate. Okay, so you need a problem. Well, the next thing you need to do is, well, you need to have something to say about the problem. Well, so reading. Reading is really good for that. Read as much as you can. Get your hands on that addresses the problem. Okay, so now you know a bunch of things, or at least provisionally know them. You at least have access to them. Well, now you start sorting through it. It's like, okay, well, maybe I need to summarize what I've learned, and then I need to iron out the contradictions between what I've learned, and I need to elegantly formulate that, and I need to get my word choice right, and my phrase choice right, and my sentence choice right, and I need to organize the sentences into proper paragraphs, and the paragraphs into proper sequence so that I have a coherent argument. And at the same time, what you're doing is you're integrating your own personality at the highest and most abstract level of organization, and you're sharpening your tools, and you're putting yourself straight because you're learning to think. You learn to do that by writing. And so I would say, pick some hard problems and learn to write very, very carefully. And when I say pay attention to the word, I mean that. Pick the right words. Organize them into the right phrases. Get your sentences straight. Like when I wrote my first book, Maps of Meaning, I believe I wrote every sentence in that book 50 times. 50 variants of every sentence. I'd read it once, I'd read it again, I'd read it again, I'd read it again, and I'd have a little competition. Which sentence is better? Which sentence is better? I'd pick that sentence. Do the same with the paragraphs. Over many, many years, you hone your words. They're the most powerful thing about you, bar none. If you are an effective writer and speaker and communicator, you have all the authority and competence that there is. And so you're at university. Maybe you're taking a humanities degree. Well, what's the humanities degree for? It's to teach you how to think. You learn to think by writing. Now, there's more to read, to speak, and all of that. But the best thing you can do is read and write every day. A couple of hours every day. Write about things you find important. And see if you can discover what you believe to be true. And that'll build you a foundation. And it's unbelievably practical. Like if you look at people who are phenomenally successful across life, there's various reasons, but one of them is that they're unbelievably good at articulating what they're aiming at, and strategizing and negotiating and enticing people with a vision forward. It's like, get your words together, man. That makes you unstoppable. And that's the core of the humanities, that idea. Get your words together. Make yourself an articulate creature, and then you're deadly in the best possible way. So, and take that seriously. And I'll end with something too. You students, you might think in your more cynical moments that you have to offer your professors what they want and gerrymander the content of your language to suit their predilections, or what you consider to be their predilections. First of all, it's a very small minority of professors who are corrupt enough to punish you for producing a high-quality essay that they don't agree with. And though that's reprehensible, but it doesn't happen very often. But more importantly, it's the highest academic sin to do that. Because what you're here to do is to learn to find your true voice. And every time you deviate from that for expedient reasons, you corrupt yourself. And not in a trivial way. Because when you formulate your arguments, that becomes a permanent part of your character. You carry that with you. It becomes part of the structure through which you view the world, and it guides your actions. And so you hold your words pristine, and you work in a dedicated way to become as articulate and clear as you can possibly become. And there's nothing that's more practical and noble than that at the same time. That's why the humanities are so valuable. You think, well, what good is a humanities degree? It's like, well, you come out of here able to speak and think and write, no matter where you go, like you're headed for the pinnacle, and hopefully in a way that's positive for everyone. So that's what I would recommend.
So Jordan Peterson, that was a very beautiful way to end the interview and the Q&A, I think. We're almost already a bit over time, almost 10 minutes. But thank you for your passionate words. And yeah, again, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Woo! The way to teach people critical thinking is to teach them to write. And I made this little thing that I put online. I don't know if maybe is it in the Psych 434 website? Did I post that rubric for essay writing?
But I don't think it actually went through. I think it is still on 430. That's how I got
Is it not on 434? Is that not working?
It must not have gone through when you were doing it.
Oh.
Yeah, but I still found it. It's still in 430.
Oh, okay. Well, there's an essay. Oh, that's too bad. It's not on the Psych 434 website even?
I didn't check.
Because I updated it. Anyways, I have this guide to writing that if it isn't on the 434 website, it is definitely on the 430 website. And it steps people through the process of writing. Because what's happened now, it's very hard to teach people to write because it's unbelievably time intensive. And like marking a good essay, that's really easy. Check A. You did everything right. Marking a bad essay? Oh my God. The words are wrong, the phrases are wrong, the sentences are wrong, they're not ordered right in the paragraphs aren't coherent, and the whole thing makes no sense. So, trying to tell the person what they did wrong, it's like, well, you did everything wrong. Everything about this essay is wrong. Well, that's not helpful either. You have to find the few little things they did half right, and you have to teach them what they did wrong. It's really expensive. And so what I did with this rubric was try to address that from the production side instead of the grading side. But the best thing you can do is teach people to write, because there's no difference between that and thinking. And one of the things that just blows me away about universities is that no one ever tells students why they should write something. It's like, well, you have to do this assignment. Well, why are you writing? Well, you need the grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think. Because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake. And those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way. So that's why you learn to write. It's like, and I can't believe that people aren't just told that. It's like, it's the most powerful weapon you can possibly provide someone with. And I mean, I know lots of people who've been staggeringly successful and watched them throughout my life. I mean, those people, you don't want to have an argument with them. They'll just slash you into pieces. And not in a malevolent way. It's like, if you're going to make your point and they're going to make their point, you better have your points organized, because otherwise you are going to look like and be an absolute idiot. You are not going to get anywhere. And if you can formulate your arguments coherently and make a presentation, if you can speak to people, if you can lay out a proposal, God, people give you money, they give you opportunities, you have influence. That's what you're at university for. And so that's what you do. You're in English, right? In languages anyways. It's like, yeah, teach people to be articulate, because that's the most dangerous thing you can possibly be. So, and that's motivating if people know that. It's like, well, why are you learning to write? Because here's your sword, here's your M16, right? Here's your bulletproof vest. Like, you learn how to use them. But it's just, it's an endless mystery to me why.
One of the books that can be read to be transformative. I mean, the otherness that realizes and that awakens and opens up the self, that turns those lights on, is not just a random otherness. I mean, you can look at a brick wall all day and never get anything like what we get by looking at the King's Chapel that we just came from a few minutes ago. That the levels of pattern and depth and beauty that are present in that building, that's a kind of metaphor for what the most wonderful, most fecund texts of our own past offer to us. You know, there they are lying on the shelf, but when opened up and explored fully, they open up in us. Yeah, they're portals. So I suppose
a book isn't a book. A book isn't paper.
Yes.
That's your memory. That's your perception of the book. It's a portal.
Yes.
And you know, one of the ideas, the postmodern idea, is that, well, there's no canon. And if there is a canon, it's only there to support the tyrannical patriarchy, because, of course, the tyrannical patriarchy is the explanation for everything. But I've been trying to solve that problem technically. I have a small staff that's trying to produce an educational system online. And we've been trying to understand, well, what is it that makes a book canonical? There's actually a technical answer to that. So you imagine that books exist in relationship to one another. That's a perfectly reasonable postmodernist claim, by the way. Books exist in relationship to one another. Okay, well, some books have hardly any relationship to other books. Those are trivial books. Now, they might be undiscovered works of genius. That's another possibility if they're recently written. But it doesn't matter, because you can't separate the wheat from the chaff. At present, it's too difficult. There's too much chaff. But if you go back into the past, you can rank order books by the degree to which they've influenced other books. So it's like citations in some sense. And the books that have influenced the largest number of other books are the canonical books. And the ultimate canonical book in the West is clearly the biblical corpus, because it's influenced virtually everything. And so you have to know it, because it's implicit in everything else. And so you start there, and so you have that. You have that knowledge, at least to some degree. And it gives you the foundation, the metaphorical foundation, the conceptual foundation, the mythical foundation that you can use to then, well, then maybe you can now Shakespeare opens up to some degree, and now Milton opens up to some degree, and Dante opens up to some degree. And you think, well, why should those open up? And the answer is, well, as the social constructionists claim, you're at least in part a historical creature. Well, then those books are about you. The patterns in those books are the patterns of your perceptions and your actions. And without understanding them, then you don't know who you are, and you can't guide yourself properly through life. And so you come into university and you encounter experts, and they say, look, this is canonical. Why? Because it's had a disproportionate influence on everything else. So there's something here that you need to know about, because it's about you. And it isn't about the you that's here now in some sense. It's about the you that can unfold across time in the best possible way. So each of those works is a call to adventure. Every painting that's a great painting, or a building like the King's Chapel, if that's not a call to adventure, I mean, what else could it be? We were talking about that. So these ancient buildings, these great ancient buildings that Europe is littered with, people were aiming at something beyond themselves, beyond the span of their lifetime. They engaged in the collective manifestation of these great works to aim, to participate in aiming at something that was beyond them. It was a divine aim. They had the will to produce this beauty that transcended centuries. You know, and maybe the will that produces beauty is always aligned with that which transcends centuries. Maybe those are the same things. I mean, even paintings, oil paintings, you know, they take a moment in time and they cast it into a permanent form that can be preserved across centuries. And so there's something about the establishing a relationship with eternity that's key to the construction of something that's beautiful. And then that in itself becomes a call to a relationship with eternity. So, and you need that. People hunger for. Other questions?
So, I mean, I wasn't really aware of what you just sort of said, that most people don't watch movies, because I probably watch them and I just think it's commonplace. So is that why you sort of consider, because we were talking celebrity earlier, that different levels of abstraction of celebrity are respected more, like reality is probably lower than, a
Sure.
Cumberbatch than a theater actor than like a novelist?
Yes, that's exactly why, because you see, the genre, the more the genre is like real life. And the more sophisticated it is, the more it has abstracted out across instances of real life the fundamental lessons. And that's what makes something profound and deep. It's abstracted from multiple sources and it applies across multiple dimensions. Because that's what you want. It's like, and here's why, fundamentally. It's like, you have a problem, but that's not the problem. The problem is that there are problems. So the problem is a meta-problem. There are problems. You need a solution to that. That's not a solution to a problem. That's a meta-solution to the class of problems. Right, and that's what people have been trying to figure out ever since we were able to actually figure things out. It's not how do you solve a problem. It's how do you act so that you solve the problem of problems. And that's basically, at least, the complexity of life and the fact that you're mortal and vulnerable. So
then a follow-up question. From your book, you have this sort of strata from play all the way up to religion and beyond that, sort of looking back retroactively with philosophy and rationality.
Yes. Well, that's a good one. I would say, if you really want to think this through, the best way to do that is to read Nietzsche and Dostoevsky at the same time. Now, I'm sure there's other ways of doing this, but Nietzsche was actually quite heavily influenced by Dostoevsky, more than people knew, although their thought runs very parallel. And so Dostoevsky is like the ultimate dramatist, right? He embodies his ideas and he has them act out in a dramatic space. It's literary. Whereas Nietzsche has taken that up one level of abstraction to the semantic. He says, well, here's what's going on in an articulated way. But he doesn't embody it in the story. And you might say, well, that's higher, but it's only higher in a way. It's more abstract in that it's more like words. Whereas what Dostoevsky does is half words and half images, right? Because when you read a novel, what happens is that people say, and the postmodernists say, well, where the hell's the meaning in that novel? It's like, it's not in the word, it's not in the phrase, it's not in the sentence, it's not in the paragraph, where do you localize the meaning? It's a great question. Their answer sucks, but the question's great. So, but what happens partly when you're reading a book is that, a novel, is that the words trigger representations in your imagination, and a lot of the information from which a lot of what you extract the information from is actually your imagistic representation of the words. And that imagistic representation is richer than the words because it's informed by all of your knowledge about people. And so you know this happens because you go to a movie like the Harry Potter movies and you say, that's not how I imagined it. Right? The probability that there'll be a one-to-one correspondence between your internal representation of the book and the movie is zero. And usually the movie is less rich than the book. I mean, I love movies and they have their own place, that's for sure. But miniseries, the series now are more approaching the complexity and depth of literature because they can extend across 20 hours. They don't have to compress a 12-hour reading experience into 2 hours of action. So, and so what I was trying to do with that hierarchy was to show how the knowledge moved. Like, first of all, it's kind of implicit in your biology, and then it's distributed into society. And then by imitating society, you make it part of your procedures, and then you watch your own procedures and start to build a representation of them, and then you can articulate that representation. And it's a bootstrapping process, too, because once you've made the representation, that can affect the way you behave, and so they start to loop. And so here's one idea. So imagine that there's a type of male who tends to win dominance hierarchy contests and to merge at the top. Well, that's the case. That is the case. And that's why you're the way you are. And so what's happened among human beings, this is so cool, is that human females are choosy maters. So about twice as many men fail in their reproductive efforts as females fail. Okay, but the men who succeed are more successful. So women are on average more successful, and men are on average more failures and more successful. And I'm talking strictly about reproduction here, although it generalizes to other areas, but I'm talking about reproduction. So how does it work exactly? Well, the women have a real problem with mate selection. It's like, who the hell are you going to have as a mate? And it's too complex to work out. So women in their genius don't. They let the men compete, and then they peel from the top, acting out the assumption that the man who wins is the best man. And it's a good assumption, because if you have a bunch of men competing, especially if they're competing across competitions, and someone pops up at the top, you can think, well, they may not be worth much, but they're better than anyone else at whatever it is that they're doing. And that makes men at the top of dominance hierarchies very attractive to women. And then the women accelerate that, so you can imagine they're more likely to reproduce. And so what happens is that the proclivity to emerge at the top of the set of dominance hierarchies becomes inbuilt into the biology across time. And the women exaggerate that by differentially allowing the men to reproduce. And that's also why they're Mother Nature. They really are Mother Nature. It's not just a metaphor. And so then the representation and the biology start to tangle together. And that's like, well, that's the difference between a meme and an archetype. Right? A meme is this idea that propagates itself, but an archetype is an idea that has propagated itself across such a massive span of time that it's actually shaped the course of evolution itself. And men, I can tell you already how this... It isn't necessarily that you even have to compete with other men in order to see who wins. As soon as you admire someone, and that'll happen unconsciously, you won't be able to stop yourself. You've already elevated them in the dominance hierarchy contest. The act of admiration is your recognition that you've met someone who's better at whatever it is that happens to be driving your admiration than you are. And so, and that's partly the manifestation of just the idea as the what would you say, as the representation of the ideal. And kids do that all the time. They hero worship other kids. Usually, like a 4-year-old will latch onto some 6-year-old who will just follow, or she'll follow everywhere and do exactly what they do. And it's like, well, why? Well, because that person represents to that child their next ideal, their conceptualization of the place forward. So okay. And any other questions, or should we maybe call it a day?
To forgive, but you cannot forget.
Why Live, the new eau de toilette intense. Yves Saint Laurent.
Imagine if we played outside instead of online. We could search without an engine and recharge our batteries with sunshine. Instead of looking things up, what if we just look up?
That's the right way to think. See, the God idea, here's another way of thinking about it that's quite cool. I learned this from Jung, and you can take it for what it's worth. The highest ideal that a person holds, consciously or unconsciously, that's their God. It functions in precisely that manner. And people might say, well, I don't believe in God. It's like, well, it depends on what you mean. Right. Like, and I'm not being foolish about that. It's like, we're very complicated creatures, and we're run by all sorts of very strange things down there in the unconscious, you know. And the Greeks thought we were the playthings of the gods because we serve lust, we serve thirst, we serve hunger, we serve rage, you know, and those things all transcend us. So that's why they were gods. You know, rage, that's the war god. Well, why is it a God? Well, it exists forever. It exists in all people. It takes them over and directs their behavior. It's a God. Well, you can quibble about the details. No, it's not a God. Okay, fine. It's a psychological force.
Right. Do people get too hung up on that one word?
Well, they don't really. We have to think about it functionally to some degree. We have to think about what that idea means. We've had that idea forever. It isn't just some superstition. Jesus, we've got to be more sophisticated than that, man.
Right.
And that's partly, this is partly what I think is unfortunate about the new atheists, let's say, is they don't take the damn problem seriously. They think, well, Christianity, that's just a bunch of superstition. It's like, really? No. Sorry. That's just not deep enough, man.
So what it really is the accounts of people trying to work out the issues of being a human.
Let me give you another example. This is so cool. It's Northrop Frye, who is a biblical scholar at the University of Toronto. This was one of his elucidations of the structure of the Bible. So the Bible's actually a story, which is weird because it's a whole bunch of different books written by a whole bunch of different people, edited kind of willy-nilly over thousands of years, and then assembled by committee. It's a really strange book, but it has a narrative structure. So, and that sort of emerged as a collective decision across these thousands of years. So, the Old Testament, here's the rough story in the Old Testament. Israel is sort of a middle power, and it rises to power, and domination. And then a prophet arises and says, look, you guys are all successful now. You're starting to get corrupt. You're not paying attention to the widows and children. You're not running your state according to the superordinate principle. You might say, well, the superordinate principle doesn't exist. It's like, okay, keep running it that way and see what the hell happens. That's what the prophet says, usually at the risk of his life. He says that to the king. It's like, fine, you don't believe in God, you don't believe in the superordinate principle, let's say that, the superordinate ethical principle, no problem. Keep doing what you're doing. Let's see what happens. Well, what happens is Israel gets wiped out, and then for generations it's enslaved or its population is being destroyed, and then it sort of climbs back up to power, and then it gets powerful for a brief period of time, and it gets corrupt, and a prophet comes up and says, remember that superordinate principle that you made a covenant with? You're not paying any attention to it anymore. You better look the hell out. And everyone ignores it, and bang. So it's order, corruption, chaos. Order, corruption, chaos. That happens 6 times now. So there's an idea behind it. The idea, because the state keeps rising, there's an idea that emerges out of that the aim is the perfect state. That's a utopian dream that arises out of that, let's call it, learned process over thousands of years. If we could only get the state perfect, well, let's say like the state of Israel, or the Russian state, the communist state, if we could only bring utopia in at the political level, our problems would be solved. Well, then what happens is there's a transition in conceptualization, and that happens with the New Testament. And the New Testament conceptualization is, wait a minute, the state isn't salvation. The individual is salvation. Now you say, well, we're going to just throw that out, are we? That was a hell of a discovery, man. And then there's more to it. It's not only is the individual salvation, it's the truthful individual that's salvation. You think of how difficult a concept like that is to develop. If there's anything less self-evident than that. Because you think, well, who's going to run the dominance hierarchy? It's like the biggest bloody monster with a club. It's like, no, it turns out those are unstable. Those societies are unstable. They don't work. They collapse into chaos. They get corrupt. They lose sight of the superordinate principle, whatever that is. The stable solution is the individual that tells the truth. And it's taken us forever to figure that out. And that's partly what the postmodernists are after. That's their anti-phallogocentrism. That's why they skitter off and hide in their ideology. They're afraid to come out. They're afraid to be seen. They're afraid to speak because they have nothing to say. So we have to get sophisticated about this stuff, or we're going to throw it away without understanding it. It's unbelievable. Like that story is, it's the story upon Western civilization. It's the story upon which Western civilization is founded. That's why Nietzsche said when God was dead that everything would collapse into chaos. He didn't say that triumphantly. He knew what was going to happen. So did Dostoevsky. That's why I admire those people so much. They knew what was coming. So what I've been trying to do, and I've been guided in large part by Jung, because he was the first. See, Jung took Nietzsche's problem seriously. Nietzsche said, look, we're losing our faith. We're losing our ability to relate to this superordinate ethical principle. And he actually blamed Christianity for killing itself with the sword of truth that it had produced. Said, so we're going to lose this, and it's big trouble. Make no mistake about it, because our whole society is founded on those principles. We get rid of the animating spirit at the base of it, we're going to lose all of it. So, and Nietzsche thought, well, we're going to have to become superhuman to manage it. That's where his concept of the overman comes from, or the superman, which the Nazis sort of pulled off and parodied, I would say. Now, Jung, you see, Jung was a student of Nietzsche's, not directly, but very much influenced by him. Jung thought that Nietzsche was wrong, that we couldn't create our own values. Because, look, it's so hard to create your own value. Like, let's say you're kind of an overweight guy and you decide to go to the gym for your New Year's resolution. It's like you don't. You go twice and then you stop, and it's because you can't create your own values, right? It's hard. You're not your own slave. You can't just tell yourself what to do. You have a nature. And so Jung's idea was, well, that we had to go back to the mythology. We had to go back to the stories. We had to go back into the underground, unconscious chaos and lift out what we had forgotten. And that's what he was trying to do with his psychology, and he's done it very effectively. Very, very effectively. He was a revolutionary thinker, but very difficult to understand. And so I've been working with Jung's ideas for a long time, trying to, I would say, make them more rational and articulate. And believe me, that's no critique, because every time I go back to Jung, which I do from time to time, thinking I've kind of mastered him, I learn a bunch of stuff that I didn't know. So what I've been trying to do is to resurrect, I'm trying to resurrect the dormant logos, I suppose, if you have to put it that way. That's what I'm trying to do.
So everybody, when I never met in person, I never met Jordan Peterson in person. But I said to him when we met right before lunch, something that is said to me by so many people who meet me for the first time, I feel like I know you. And that is the highest compliment in effect. I now understand what a compliment it is when I receive it, because I never gave it to somebody before you. And I have watched you for hours and listened to you and read your book. And in fact, I didn't just read your book, I heard your book from you. So I want to tell you something without embarrassing you. But I think I like to, you open your heart and your mind, and so do I. When I was very young, I realized that God or nature had given me what I have called a goodness detector. And I always knew when I was in the presence of a good person, because that's all I really care about. I think brains are wildly overrated. Wildly. That's why I think you're not bright if you join Mensa. Why you would want to announce to the world your IQ is so bizarre to me that I'm sure there are nice people there, but I don't understand it. But I always picked up that, and I've always been right. I'm batting 1,000 essentially. And when I heard you read your book, the passion comes from, I just want to help people lead a better life. And it's really, it's quite overwhelming. You didn't just read that book. You, I won't say you sang it, but I like that you use music. I'm very much into music too. So this is the man that I'm honored to have this dialogue with, because everybody knows you're bright, but I know you're good. So I wanted to state that at the outset.
See, I have something to say about that.
Good. That's good.
See, I don't think it's true. I mean, this is why.